the cult of personality, the cult of personality.
Add it to the blacklist. I never want to hear that music again.
One prosperously.
Oh, I'm the cult of personality, the cult of personality.
Add it to the blacklist. I never want to hear that music again.
All right. Hello, everybody. And on time.
Perfect timing.
Well, perfect timing. We just started the live stream. Wow.
Right.
Okay. Joining us is Laith Marouf. Hello, Laith. How are you doing? Are you, first and foremost, are you safe? Everything good?
Yes. I was out filming today, and it's it was a tiring day, but I'm fine.
Okay.
Well, we really appreciate you. Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you for the invitation.
No problem. I was hoping that I didn't forget to put Pacific Standard Time, because I was looking at the clock last night and I was like, oh, it's 8 a.m. over there. I'm like, hope he's not in the studio right now. So I checked the StreamYard, everything.
Yeah.
So everything was correct. Everything was fine. Again, welcome and thank you for coming back on the network. A crazy 24 hours, I can say. So I feel like we could get into first, into what would be some occupied news. We have Agent Orange, as I like to call him, but Donald Trump is elected U.S. president, and we have a kind of narrative that's going on right now where individuals, are looking at the situation and trying to put blame on, oh, it's because you voted third party, it's because you didn't vote at all, as to why he won. Well, I can give a clear, explanation to this. We live under a democratic fascist state, so they were going to pick the biggest fascist to be the head of the imperial core. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts on the 2024 U.S. occupational election here in Turtle Island. And just for the viewers, this isn't a good thing for the destabilization that's going on in West Asia. This just means a further continuation. But if you could explain your thoughts on the election.
Well, first off, I would like to note that I don't believe that there is any democracy and that actually people's votes are being counted and truly represented in these elections. But even looking at the theatrics of this election, I was just looking at some of the breakdown of the votes in the last half hour just before setting up here. And clearly, if you put all the third-party votes together, that's not enough for Harris to win against Trump. So it's insignificant, all the third parties, whether it's Jill Stein or Dr. West or the duo there for I think it's the Socialist Party or something like this. I don't remember. Similarly, I was looking at the breakdown by quote-unquote ethnicity, and I don't believe there is any such thing as ethnicity or race. There's linguistic cultural groups. That's what we are. But you remember all that talk about black men abandoning Kamala Harris and all of that. Black men is like something like almost 80% voted for Harris. So again, it's ridiculous, the theatrics. And the final thing that I could say from those surveys that I saw, they had breakdown by these racial groups, white, black, Latino, and then other.
Which is what they classify indigenous. It's crazy.
Yes. And what I noticed there is in the other group, it had the highest number of voters for third party. So something like 5 or 6%. So in every other racial group, it was insignificant, but this was like 5%. So I'm like thinking in my head, the Asians, those are the others, and the indigenous and the Arabs, okay, are the ones that really voted for a third party. And that's a condemnation of, but again, the caveat is that none of this is real. I would say that, for us as Arabic people, and similarly, it's for indigenous people or Black people, quote unquote, you look at the last 100 years and it never made a difference who is in power in the US, which party. Our death is at the top priority of any president. The killing of our children is at the top priority of any president in the US since the US ever existed. And what they're doing to Palestinian children right now in Gaza is very similar, if not just a modern version of what they did to indigenous children in the United States and Canada over the centuries before the cameras and television existed. So there's nothing new under the sun, as they would say. And it's mind-boggling to even see people who are on the Palestinian camp in the US putting so much time and effort into this theatrics of an election. I thought in my mind, this is such a waste of money, of time, of people's energy. You're better off directing these millions of people that are seeking a real change, directing them to taking action, direct action, and that will make a huge difference. Look at what this small, very small group called Palestine Action in the UK. They have destroyed practically Elbit Technologies, the Israeli military manufacturer. All its base has been destroyed in the UK by a bunch of just maybe 10, 50 people. Over 1 year, you're able to destroy that. And so I hope that this election will awaken some more people to go back to the physical revolutionary work that was being done in the 60s and 70s in the US, whether it's American Indian movement or the Black Panthers or the Weathermen, all of these things that have had probably more effect on the policy of the US towards those communities than anything else over the last 100 years.
Yeah, and you bring up a valid point that within the indigenous population here, I could say, and I don't speak for everybody, but I do speak for quite a few that, understand that electoral politics is it's equivalent to voting for our next master. We are an occupied entity just as much as Palestine is, just as much as what's going on in the destabilization in West Asia. And so when I get people that say, well, our liberation comes from electoral politics, I find that funny, especially for those that say that they've read W.E.B. Du Bois, who stoically talked about this system will never give us the right for liberation through the means of electoral politics. Kwame Ture, we actually had someone who ran on as a VP candidate and used and co-opted Kwame Ture's own words to try and justify voting under electoral politics. But if we know that Ture was here, he would not. He would have to push back on that extensively because he understood the assignment. The assignment is that imperialism, you cannot use the master's tools to kill the master. You can't. It's not something that's possible. We live under an occupation here, and I think it's very hard for indigenous people like myself to look at people be performative, directly in not just my face but all indigenous people's faces when you say that, hey, voting under this system is the right way, is the right thing to do. It's borderline asinine. It's asinine in of it itself, to just be honest. I wanted to quote something that you said in an interview that you did recently on your own platform on Free Palestine TV. So I really hope everybody who's watching is tuning into Laith's work, the work that is freepalestinetv.video. Again, freepalestinetv.video. You had in the interview, you said we need more asadas. And I completely agree with you in that manner. And especially when you look at, like how you highlighted, the resources that were involved into third party politics, that were involved into getting people to campaign electorally, could have been used to, say, fortify the understanding of what true, class collaboration and what true decolonization would look like here in the West. And you bring up something, you brung up something in the past before that I'd like for you to speak on, is that the West is not prepared mentally to really understand the implications of what's going on an imperial level abroad. So if you could explain, why people just don't necessarily get it. They don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's something that an older indigenous person told me in Canada, and obviously he has heard it from his elders before, which is, what if I told you that the right wing and the left wing are on the same bird? So it's clear that this election process doesn't question the colonial past, the imperialist past, the present, and the crimes of the state against its people. So what's the point? When I'm talking about Assata Shakur, I was talking about how she was, her colleagues, her comrades, broke her out of prison, and gave her freedom in Cuba, smuggled her to Cuba. And I was talking about the Palestine Action prisoners right now, political prisoners that are in the UK. There's at least 11 of them languishing in the worst conditions, and they're being psychologically tortured and what have you. When we, in general, talk about this co-option of people's emotion, thinking, and investment into electoral processes in the West, I would like anyone to point me to any revolutionary government coming into power since the end of World War II in any Western state through an electoral process. There hasn't been even non-electoral process of some revolutionary government getting into power anywhere. So, you have 80 years of record that this does not work. So you have to be a total fool, tool, or agent to actually believe that you can achieve change in the West through this theatrical democracy that exists.
Yeah, and just to undergird what you're saying, theories have already been put in place, as far back as 2014 to that solidifies everything that you just stated. Is that, for one, they're polling stations. They're not voting stations. They're polling. They want an opinion on an answer, on a question that they already have the answer to the person that they want to be the next master of imperialism. And so this was done in 2014. And in regards to this article, it approaching, a study, through a decolonial Marxist lens, because that's what I classify myself, is that the U.S. government's, alignment with elite interests as a continuation of colonialist exploitation. So again, these elite companies, leverage, and there was Citizens versus, I believe, FCC, if I'm correct.
United.
Yeah, Citizens United versus FCC, which basically allows for big money hungry corporations, that suck the blood essentially out of society, have unlimited access to giving funding to certain campaigns. And so we see, and we've seen over time, the person who spends the most usually wins. I think in this case, that was true, especially, with the results that came in as early as 7 p.m. yesterday. It was a win. We're not in a position to really do any good, especially under the guises of electoral politics. I want to shift this question, if we could, to those that really believe that under Trump something positive will come, a ceasefire, which is far gone. It was off the table before the resistance forces aligned. They're fighting imperialism, and so there's no taking a break from that. There's no saying, hey, can we shoot you guys from 7 to 9, and then from 9 to 12, we take a break? That's not how this works. And so for those that believe, if you could explain that, Trump's not going to fix, he's not going to de-escalate, he's going to cause escalation, as in that's what his job is to do, cause mass escalation and destabilization in West Asia to uphold the values of Western and American imperialism. So if you could just explain just that in general, people really thinking that there is in some possible way Trump is going to somehow stop all this that's going on in West Asia, when he's openly, adamantly said his son-in-law, so far back as a year ago, talked about during the early stages of the bombardment of Gaza, talked about basically what their plan is to eradicate Palestinians and create what would essentially be beachfront property in northern Gaza. We know that there are death queues in Jabalia. Through drop site news coverage, we found out that there is a pilot program that was greenlit for over $200 million to be spent on concentration camps within the concentration camp. So Gaza is a concentration camp. It's a concentration camp within a concentration camp. So if you could just explain to people, there's no de-escalation with Trump, and there wasn't going to be de-escalation with Kamala either.
Well, our viewers may remember that Trump was the one that declared Jerusalem and Syria's occupied Golan Heights as Israeli property. And he's the one who also assassinated General Soleimani of Iran. So it's clear what is happening. And he said he will be looting, openly he said he will be looting the Iraqi and Syrian oil. He was what's great about Trump is that you get the truth of what is happening from him, because he's the mafioso, thuggish, bandit face of the empire that is hid usually when you have a Democrat behind a suit and a nice face. But with him, you get the truth. And from today till January, 7th or whatever, or 20th, when he comes into power, I think Netanyahu has free reign to do whatever he wants to. So we will see actually a full escalation now in the next few hours and days in the region. The idea is that Trump wants Netanyahu to kill as many people, clear out as many indigenous from as much territory as he wants to, assassinate everybody he can before Trump's come into power. So maybe Trump can claim his arrival is going to calm things down. Okay, but there will be this mass escalation, and we're already hearing that Trump wants to also announce the West Bank as part of Israeli territory. So this is what's going to happen. But this is not about Trump either. You see, we're talking about an empire. It's very important to kind of recognize how states work. If you have a state like, let's say, Syria, that has faced wars since its revolutionary independence in 1942, has faced coups after coup and war after war for 80 years. Okay, it's so what does that mean? That means a state like that, when it wants to write up its strategic plans, it cannot write up anything further than 5 or 7 year cycles, because the average is that within 7 years there's a war here, right? So the state cannot draw up long-term strategic plans beyond these 7 years. In a state like Iran, which has stabilized since the end of the Iraq-Iran war in 89, it has now 30 somewhat years of stability, meaning there's no war on its territory or is fully engaged. It was starting to be able to draw up 20-year plan, 25-year plans, because its stability is 25 years, okay, or 30 years. So it can draw up another 30 years doing that. An empire like the United States, who hasn't faced war on its territory since forever, is able to draw up 100-year plans, okay? And this 100-year plans, they don't change with whoever gets into power. What changes is the tactical maneuvers that are usually laid out. You have, let's say, the strategic goal of the United States, and this is the strategic goal of the United States, is to remain the hegemon, the only empire. Okay, so now you know its strategic goal. Now you have 5, 6 options as tactical maneuvers within each year or so forth that pile up to get, and the president that comes in or administration that comes in can choose within those 5, 6 options. It's not like they're not going to abandon wanting to be the hegemon suddenly. No, that's not going to happen. You're in an empire. So this is how it works. It doesn't matter who's in power. This is how states work. And this is definitely how an empire that has been stable for so long can behave.
Yeah, which is why mass escalation is its only massive, it's its one massive tool that it uses to, again, destabilize regions so it could live up to what it wants to live up to. I'm going to pass this over to my comrade Ryan. Ryan is someone who for the past year I've been rocking out with is in regards to just, laying out decolonial analysis, making sure that people are getting the right narrative. So I just want to shout out, my comrade over there, as well. But I'm going to pass this over to Ryan. He got some questions to ask you.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for coming on. We really do appreciate it. I'm a big fan of your stuff and a big fan of trying to push the narrative that I think that you also are trying to push. And so I would like to ask, because given the continued calls for international protection for Palestinians, as seen in recent comments from Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Salih following deadly Israeli raids, how might international law support or hinder those protections, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a pie in the sky. There is no more international law. Okay. Because this is another concept that we should all understand. Regular national laws, like the criminal code in the US or something like this, is de jure. What does that mean? That means it's adjudicated in the court of law, and then the decision is made by it. So it's adjudicated. International law is de facto, meaning it is what you can bring into fact only. That's what it is. So, for instance, let's say majority of states sign on to a treaty about pesticides, for instance, okay? So if you have the majority of the planet refusing to sign that treaty, it is not a fact, even if, let's say, 60 states, or let's say you have a law that the majority signed on to, but there is a big chunk of the world refusing to apply it, and you're not able to enforce the law on them. Okay? So it is not about what's written. What is international law is what can you bring into fact through either compliance by the majority, by everybody, and or through force. So right now we have seen a whole year where the collections of international laws and international human rights laws that were written after World War II have been raped on TV by the whole West. So it's not even just a small number of states. No, they were like put into flames on our television day in, day out, by the collective West, NATO, whatever you want to call them, empire ruled from Washington, D.C. And therefore, the international law that we know does not exist anymore. Okay, this is the moment we're living. And similarly, those international agencies that were structured after end of World War II, the United Nations and all its adjunct organizations, have been unable to deliver on their mandates, okay? And the best example of how the fact that international law now and those international agencies are collapsing is looking at what happened to UNRWA right now with the Israeli government banning the UN Relief Agency from operating inside historical Palestine. So that means right now the UN agencies from UNRWA on the ground to all the way to the Security Council that has been unable to deliver on any act or motion to end this genocide, means all of those UN agencies are right now collapsing. Okay, so it's very similar to the moment before World War I, and when the Germans and the Italians and the Japanese walked out. After World War, because the British and the French continued colonizing, and the Italians and the Germans and the Japanese said, "Well, if you're going to continue colonizing, we need to also." And then Italians went crazy in Libya and Ethiopia, and we know what happened with the Japanese in Korea and so forth. So that moment collapsed the League of Nations and all the collection of international law that came with the League of Nations. Okay, and World War II birthed the international law that we know and those agencies that we know today, and that's collapsing right now. And this is why we are right now in a state of non-existence of international law. So there will be no international, troops force that's going to protect the Palestinians. The Palestinians and the axis of resistance will have no choice in front of them but to defeat the Zionist colony and expel the United States from Western Asia, or be genocided completely while the world watches.
If I could follow up real quick, what do you think about, what would it take for, say, a group like the BRICS to come together and maybe form an anti-coalition, so to speak?
BRICS is still very nascent, and it has a problem that the B and the I in BRICS are, Trojan horses. So India is a Trojan horse. We have the Hindu fascist in control. Nobody wants to talk about it. Tens of thousands of Muslims.
We do, Laith. We over here on this network like to talk about it.
Yeah, and Brazil has the pink
Yes.
wave in, and they don't want to call themselves red. So that gives you already and we saw how Lula was attacking the president of Venezuela, and calling him undemocratic, all of that, and refusing to allow the ascension of Venezuela into BRICS. So BRICS is nascent. The idea is great, but really, I don't know if it's going to be able to move fast enough as this war rolls out across the world. And so I really think that there's only 3 major states that are fighting the Western Empire, which is Iran, China, and Russia. And Iran and China and Russia are trying to always keep Iran at the edge, although they were building. They know that Iran is the 3rd pillar in Fortress Asia. But they're trying, because they want to, kind of attract others in. They keep them at a just an arm's length, and that's not going to work well for long.
Yeah, and I wanted to highlight something that Yahya Sinwar said. The resistance fighters are not going to be polite victims in this case, as he classified it. They're not going to sit back and watch their brothers and sisters be bombed and exterminated, essentially, from this earth. And so, I have a question in regards. So it says, considering the recent normalization agreements between Israel and several Arab states, such as Bahrain and the UAE, how do you perceive these alliances in the context of U.S.-backed interests in West Asia, and what implications might this alignment have for Palestinian sovereignty?
Yeah, well, first off, Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates and Qatar and Kuwait, these are all countries created by the British, states that were created by the British in the 1960s and 70s. They're younger as vessels than the Zionist colony. When they created Bahrain, the population was 50,000. That's like a block right here in Beirut. Okay. Qatar, when they created it, it was like 80,000 population. Similarly, the whole UAE was something like 100,000, the whole population. So these were, corners of the Arabic world that were, drawn up and made into states so they can siphon off the oil and gas under them, and the rest of the Arabic population would never benefit from this oil and gas. And the ruling families in Qatar and Bahrain are imported from Najd, the heartland in what is now called Saudi Kingdom. So they're not even indigenous to their lands. And the Emirates used to be called the Desert of Oman. It's just part of Oman that's cut off. And at other times, they used to be called the Pirate Coast. Okay, because it was just like a lowland where pirates and bandits would hide. These people do not represent, these states do not represent their own people. And they definitely do not represent what is Arabic people in general. I mean, can you imagine Qatar right now, the Emirates and Bahrain? It is 1 to 9, 1 citizen to 9 foreign workers in those countries. What country on the planet exists that has this ratio? I just don't understand even what is. That means that all the business operations, all the factories, all the gas and oil extraction is all being done by foreigners. Okay, and you could imagine that this only could happen because of this isolation of this territory and the fabrication of the state. If Bahrain, Qatar, Emirates, all of that was part of the larger Arabic unified land, then there would have been normal movement, as it has happened for centuries, back and forth, and then people from Syria would just move down there, and then move back up when there's no work. A century later, but these fabricated colonial borders are the major problem, not only for the Arabic people, but for the liberation of many peoples in Africa, Latin America, indigenous peoples in the United States, these fake borders. And the liberation of Palestine will lead to the collapse of these borders. This is why these elite will, in these vassal states, will do anything that the US wants them to do. They've been giving 90% of their profit of their gas and oil for the last 80 years to the Brits and the Americans just to stay in power. all this wealth that you see in the Emirates and Bahrain and Qatar, that's a fraction of what the US and the Brits stole over the last 80 years. It's like the beads trade to the indigenous people. Those elite in the Arabic Gulf countries are the same, getting the same deal as the indigenous people got for the furs and the beads. And it's nothing changed in hundreds of years of colonialism.
And you hit it right on the nail as far as for nothing has changed. All we see are contemporary versions of the same thing that has happened over time. So it's like a new car, like a Nissan 1984 truck. They make Nissans now that are called Frontiers, the same shit. It's different. It's the same thing. It's made the same. It does the same function. We live under a system that deeply manipulates people into believing that, one, they have a choice, two, that they have a say-so, and three, that they have, through the means of the same system that exploits them, that they have some type of leeway to combat it. They don't. In the midst of this, we have mass decensorship. I sent you an email in regards to, I've been trying to get Professor Saeed Marandi on here, and it's been probably the most toughest thing for me as an individual, to not necessarily swallow, but it just shows what you and to what Professor Marandi talks about is the decentralization, the censoring of Palestinian voices, the censoring of indigenous voices. And so if you could speak to, I know you had an interview just recently with an individual, and I forgive me, but I can't remember the individual's name. I just know that they Stokely, you guys went in depth on the censoring, the potential imprisonment that you can go through in the UK, but how that essentially is going to make its way here to the occupied territories of Turtle Island is this decensorship. I've tried multiple times with 3 different emails that are personally my emails, and I've gotten an email back that says that it was blocked, essentially. So this just goes to show you that these conversations that Laith, me, and Ryan, and that Professor Marandi, and every decolonial and geopolitical analyst, it has, we are being censored right now, deeply. To the person who in the comments became a member, I would ask that you would go over to our Patreon, because YouTube it demonetizes demonetizes us here. But if you could just speak to that. I know that you faced some mass censorship. You faced what would be considered targeted attacks on what you do as independent media. So if you could just explain the importance of people really understanding that even though we have these conversations right now, virtually, there's some that we can't, because if they make airwaves here in the West, it will spark a different narrative that imperialism doesn't want to be prevalent.
Yes, it was an interview with Craig Moray on our flagship show, Wartime Cafe. And Craig is a former ambassador of the UK to, I think, Tajikistan, or I'm blanking out right now. It's one of the Central Asian countries. Anyways, the conversation was about his arrest and the arrest of other journalists in the UK, like Richard Midhurst, when they returned to the UK, and because of their support for the Palestinian people and an end of the genocide. And I would say for you guys in the US, I believe things are gonna turn nasty very fast. So from day one, when Trump comes in, if Netanyahu wasn't successful to defeat the axis of resistance, which he will not be successful, the US is going to have to go to war on his behalf. And Trump will do it, as would have Kamala, by the way. So once that happens, and there is American soldiers coming back in coffins, and American bases all across the region being bombarded. Then you remember Trump said he will use the 1780 something act. I don't remember which year of the 1780s it was, that allows him to deport 20 million non-citizens in the US. That act was used 3 times before. One, to deport all the Chinese people from the West Coast.
After all the railways were built and whatnot. Isn't that funny?
Yes, then deporting the Mexicans in south of the US around World War I, and then finally to detain Japanese and German Americans during World War II, to intern them in those internment camps. And this law allows the president to arrest, intern, and deport anyone, US citizen or not, without trial. Okay. And although he was, kind of putting this forward as his solution to deport 20 million Latin American, mainly migrants in the United States, I think it will be primarily used to target the Palestinian, Arab, Muslim communities and those who stand in support of them. And then it will grow to everyone that they can categorize as undesirable, like the Nazis did. Okay, so this is going to come in the U.S. before it comes anywhere else in the West. He promised to do it, so it's not something he can deliver on.
Well, can I jump in real quick? Because I just wanted to. He can only do that if we let him, right? As a populace, like, just for everybody listening, everybody like that doesn't quite understand the fact that like all of this is only he's only capable of what he's capable of if we as a populace like allow him to do it. And that's what we're trying to get across, right? Is that we as a populace can like stand up against all this if we organize collectively.
Yes,
yeah, and
yes.
it goes.
You have to, and we have now if anybody had doubt that it is time to take action throughout the almost 14 months of genocide being broadcasted, the coming of Trump and this open thuggery should prepare people and push them into taking action. And there is a window still. It will be too late after the internment camps are open. Okay, they will. It's gonna. So people need to organize now, and we're not talking about go out and protest in front of your, or send letters to your legislators. We're talking about organizing to disrupt the authoritarian mechanisms that are there, and there, there's a huge spectrum of that. You don't have to jump into, carrying arms, for instance. Like, say, I'm not trying to, people can choose which way they want to liberate them. I'm not going to tell them how to liberate themselves, but anything that doesn't include action in it will be insufficient to stop the coming internment camps.
Yeah, and that's why, like, I know you highlighted PAL Action UK, and I know that there's PAL Action US, and there's many other branches, and I don't have pushback on what they do. I have pushback on it not evolving into something greater than just red spray paint. We all know how insurance works. We all know how, these things could be easily cleaned, which again still works in the parameters.
But they did go. They went into factories and destroyed machinery.
Yeah,
and then they destroyed the offices of the insurers.
Yeah.
and the banks and so forth. So it was a holistic approach. Okay,
Yeah.
you know, for me, look, I'm a person of direct action, and I've been involved in, you know, the only direct actions that you can think about in Canadian history over the last 20, 30 years, except Indigenous. Okay, the Indigenous people in Canada and in the US have, you know, shown us multiple times, including in the Oka confrontation, Oka crisis in 1990 in the Mohawk, carrying arms against the state of Canada and holding them to a standstill for, and similarly with the Shishupmik people in the Chipatan Lake standoff in 1995. 7 Indigenous warriors took on 7,000 Canadian military troops, and the Canadian military fired on them 77,000 rounds of ammunition, and they almost succeeded, you know. But the point is, what I'm trying to say is that direct action is the only thing that pisses off, number one, our enemy. Number two, is the only thing that succeeds. Everything else is irrelevant. The Indigenous people in the US and Canada, I think, have right now a possibility to be the incubators in the safe, reserved territory that is far away from the bubbles of Tel Aviv, you know, New York and Toronto and Los Angeles. This is Tel Aviv, okay? And in the heartlands of Indigenous, you know, still liberated territories, this is where we can incubate building cross cultural revolutionary movement in that safety. And why the Indigenous territories and Indigenous people should be at the lead of this and the place that this happens, because this is the only way you can drill it into the head of the goddamn leftist and quote-unquote immigrants that are seeking some change, that they are living in a colonial settler state, and that their liberty will never come if the Indigenous nations are not liberated. It doesn't matter how much they try to fix Canada or the US, if there is Indigenous people still under these colonial conditions and unsovereign, then they will always, as quote-unquote immigrants, will be second-class citizens, because the core value of what it is to be American currently, or what it is to be Canadian, is to be a colonialist.
You know, and I'm grinning because to hear from you, especially someone who I have watched for years, okay, say something that I literally yesterday told people. I was like, we have to start, for one, we have to classify the reservations that are here in the occupied territories of Turtle Island. They're concentration camps. That's where they were deemed and made out to be. We have to start looking to the Indigenous populations, the 1,500 sovereign nations, which includes my Indigenous roots as well in California. We have to start understanding there is more power in the struggle for liberation with Indigenous people and their government systems and their councils than any electoral politic, that any electoral process that you try and say is deemed worthy for liberation or has aesthetics to liberation. I just want to say thank you, because again, not a lot of people make that respectful conflation that there are Indigenous people that are here in the occupied territories of Turtle Island that is called America with 3 Ks. We are still here. We never left. We've just been subjugated in a fashion that has silenced our sovereignty. It's silenced our self-determination. And so for us to get back to that, to understand that we are living under a colonial mode, and we have and will continue to, unless we really understand the major implications of imperialism, not just on our territories, but also abroad. You bring up a valid point, and it's a point that the left here in the West doesn't want to conflate, because again, if you look at it through the lens of Walter Rodney, they insert a petty bourgeois aesthetic, which is they start to question, you know, all the things that they profit off of, that they gain from the exploitation of others abroad. And they question, okay, well, I don't want the system to change because then I won't have my 50 screen, my 70-inch screen, flat screen TV. I won't have my MacBook, you know, that has a touchpad. I won't have a phone that we know has coltan and cobalt in it, and a 5-year-old probably, you know, mine that in the Congo. Where I think the what you're saying is rooted directly in decolonial resistance, which is saying we just seen right now 3 whole third-party candidates. Literally, where are they to be seen right now? I'm calling a spade a spade. You know, we are living in a smoke and mirrors, you know, do as you will or as we tell you to, you know, type of environment. That's what imperialism breeds. And the only result or the only means of changing this is doing exactly what you said. So putting indigenous people as the vanguard, as they always should be. Again, it would be, people would read fancy.
Look, you know, when I moved to Canada 30 somewhat years ago, you know, I was a teenager, and you know, you had this idea that, you know, whatever Hollywood had worked its magic, obviously it works its magic a lot on teenagers more than anybody else. But within very fast period, because of my engagement with Mohawk brothers and sisters, Iroquois brothers and sisters, I was able to recognize where I am and what is this society that I'm engaging in. And if I wasn't, if I didn't go out and have that moment with my Indigenous brothers and sisters, and I spent years with many nations in quote-unquote Canada, from the Shishwapmek to the Mi'kmaq to the Dene and Innu and Inuit in the north, and I've, you know, lived years with many of them, and many of them have offered me sanctuary when the Canadian government was hunting me, and offered me land, and even the Iroquois Nation offered me a passport, okay, when I was illegal at one point in Canada, and I didn't take the passport because I didn't want them to get in trouble because of me, honest to God. But all of this made it easier for me not to fall into the stupidity that I can somehow convince Canadians that have, well, you know, I don't want to say, you know, let's say I can somehow move the Canadian government to stop supporting the genocide of the Palestinian people while they are right now in front of us, you know, genociding Indigenous people inside what is called Canada. This delusion can only happen if I have not educated myself about the Indigenous nations and their struggles, and if I didn't live with them, if I stayed in the bubble of Tel Aviv and Toronto or Tel Aviv and Montreal. So it is actually a inoculation, you know, against this virus of colonialism if people go and engage with the Indigenous nations as their primary and priority work. Then everything else falls into place once you understand that you're working within this framework of colonialism.
Yeah.
Well, can I jump in real quick?
Go ahead, Ryan.
I've been doing a study on, or I've been doing a read through of Western Marxism by Domenico Lasordo, and in that book, he kind of goes through this exact thing where, you know, Western Marxism and Eastern Marxism kind of diverged, right? And what they diverged over was the colonial question, correct? And so, like, you see the thing that's missing in Western leftism and Western Marxism in general is a lack of the colonial question and people's inability to wrestle with it because of what it says about where their comfortability lies, right? And so, but I wanted to go back. That was just a statement I wanted to make. That wasn't really a question. I'm sorry. I was listening to you talk and I couldn't stop thinking about the book and these things that I've been reading. But I also wanted to say, because you had talked about the class consciousness or the consciousness of West Africa, right? Of the population of West Africa. And I was wondering if when you were there, do you see the rising class consciousness there on the ground, like the people's? Because we don't get to see a lot from the people's perspective. So all we know is about like what the governments talk about and what we don't know a lot about what the people talk about. And so I was just wondering if you had anything to say on that.
Yeah, look, obviously there's something that awakens once we start shedding off colonial history and value. And the main thing that always comes out in decolonizing nations is that they fall back on their communal histories, their communal philosophies. Okay, so communism doesn't come is not unique as an idea, as what we call it Marxism, if we put it in the context of the communal, collective living in societal structures, let's say that were indigenous and or African and or Arabic. Okay, even this idea of look at in Islam, you have to pay every year 12% of your in assets or income directly to the poor. This is not, this is called the alms that you have to pay every year, not to the state. You have to take 12% of your excess, I guess, whatever money that you have that is you didn't spend, and give it directly to the poor around you. Okay, and the Shia add to it another 1/5 on top of the 12%, another 1/5 that they also give directly to the community around them. So, and then you add to it in those societies, all national resources are nationalized. Your oil, your gas, your whatever. So, education, health was always free before colonial settings. So what is left if you have all your national resources are nationalized, and your education and your health, and you're taking practically 25% of everybody's wealth and putting it directly into the poor? Communism doesn't make that. Communism of Marx doesn't give you that. Okay, so the great thing about decolonization is nations, peoples looking back at what has been stolen from them, not allowed to be remembered, and finding ways to bring it to a modern setting, not denying modernity in terms of throwing away the computers or whatever it is. And it's happening. It's happening everywhere, because the luster also of the shine of Western quote-unquote civilization is gone. There's nobody falling for the idea of Western liberalism and that white man is better or whatever, quote-unquote white man. Again, there's no such thing as white man.
Yes. This is not us letting you go at all. We like to take decolonial breaks on here. Interludes is what we like to call them, so it gives time people to get some water, whether you have some emails you want to, whatever it may be, and formulates us for the next segment. So stay put, Laith. I hope you still have some time. I don't know.
I actually have this other interview. I thought we're on for an hour, and I have lined up this other interview right now, But so
with that being said, we do have to have you back. I
For
will
sure.
coordinate with you on the back burner for that. Thank you, Laith, for coming on.
Yes,
There's some
thank you so
questions,
much.
obviously, that we didn't get to ask in regards to Iran and Lebanon. But again, we'll have you back. It was such a pleasure, as always. And yeah, for those that don't know, this is Laith Marouf. He is the co-founder of freepalestine.video, or Free Palestine TV at freepalestine.video. And so, yeah, I had to, just nonetheless, I'm happy. I'm grinning from ear to ear when it comes to, being on stage with Laith. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
Any interviews potentially that you'd like to queue up? I know that you do Activist News Network, with the comrades over there. Is there anything that you'd like to queue before you leave?
I also appear on the Canada Files. That's online also on YouTube, and on Garland Nixon every Tuesday. And so, I'm pretty busy, but check out our Twitter and our Telegram. We share all the interviews there and all the content. Thank you very much for having me, guys.
No problem, Laith.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, you guys. So that was Laith Marouf, comrade, friend of the network. We have never had 153 people in here ever, and I am happy.
Yeah.
I'm
You should be,
happy,
man.
happy, joyous. I hope people stick around. We have more up on the table for discussion. We're only an hour into what usually is a 3-hour show that we do, so please stick around. With that being said, though, I do want to say since there is a high fluctuate of people here, this is a grassroots network. I work for the people, by the people, with the people. And so by any means necessary, as Malcolm X would say, if you could help out, those are some avenues for which that you can go down to, help by any means necessary. With that being said, though, we're going to take a quick break. And within this break is a shout out to the Rise Up morning show, which I'm a part of. I'm part of Black Power Media Reloaded. And so this is Chairman O'Malley from A Break for Black Power that we do over on the Rise Up show on Black Power Media Reloaded, talking about Black Power, and literally references something that Laith said in the interview that we had with him, where he said, name a time period in history, literally, where somehow, some way we voted our way into revolution, and we can vote our way. Again, just stay tuned. I know we're losing some people because Laith ain't here, but it's all good. Enjoy some Chairman O'Malley Yeshitela from the Uhuru movement.
Black power, because we think that is the fundamental issue of these times that we live in, but in fact it's been the fundamental issue for African people for a very long time now. First of all, what I would like to do is just briefly say some things about the African People's Socialist Party, which is the organization that I chair. We are a revolutionary organization, and by that I want to say that we are convinced that this country, this system, do not have the ability to do justice by African people. That if we are to ever know justice, freedom, and democracy, we are going to have a revolution. It's that simple. And I know that that's a difficult issue for a lot of folk. And the fact that it is obviously a difficult issue for a lot of folk is reflected in the number of people who are in this room right now. But it is nevertheless the truth. And it's important to talk about that, because we can continue to have discussions that make us feel good, but won't take us anywhere. We can continue to have discussions where people come before us and make rhymes like up with hope and down with dope, and perhaps we'll feel better, but they don't take us anyplace. And what we have to do is come up with some kind of analysis of the reality that we are confronted with as a people, and then be able to use that analysis to change our circumstances so that they are not the kind of circumstances we find ourselves confronted with today, but what we want for ourselves and for our children in the future. So we are a revolutionary organization. We believe that if one wants to know what it will take for us to become free, all we have to do is look at history and see what it took for us to become enslaved. And if we find any place in our history that we voted ourselves into slavery, then I say let's go and get together and vote ourselves the hell out of slavery. And if we can find any place in history where we sang our way into it, then let's sing our way out of it. But the reality, that is not the case, sisters and brothers. The reality is that we are going to have to cut, shoot, and bomb our way out of the circumstances that we find ourselves confronted with. And I know that's not something that everybody wants to hear, and it's not something that a lot of folk want to hear. But it's the truth nevertheless. This is not a suggestion at this meeting that once you're on your way out, we're going to be handing out AK-47s for people to go out and do your thing. The reality is I'd be extremely afraid to pass out AK-47s in the community because I'd be afraid that I'd probably become one of the first victims of the AK-47. In other words, there's a lot of work that we have to do in the interim. But having said that there's a lot of work we have to do, we have to also remember that our objective is total, absolute liberation for our people. And you can't have it any other way. There's no way that you can talk about sharing the power over your lives with somebody else and then feeling like you got a right to complain about what somebody does to you. Either you want the power or you don't. And some people are afraid of the power, and some people are not afraid of the power. In fact, actually understand and believe that we need the power, but just don't believe we're going to ever be able to get the power. And so what they will do is find themselves compromising forever with a system that has never been able to bring anything but genocide and oppression to African people, as opposed to struggling to find some way to end our relationship with this North American hell that we've been confronted with for something like 500 years today. So we're a revolutionary organization. We're a revolutionary organization that was founded in 1972 at the back of the attack on and defeat of the Black Revolution of the 60s. The Black Revolution of the 60s was one of the most consequential things that has ever occurred in this country, and it's something that we have to struggle to understand. All of us need to struggle to understand. And we need to understand it because subsequent to the defeat of the Black Revolution of the 60s, there's been a lot of historical revisionism that's been occurring in this country. And what we find is today people tell us that the 60s was not about revolution, but it was about the flower children in Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco making love and not war. They tell us it was about hippies. Or if they find themselves talking about African people in this country, what they suggest is that perhaps it has something to do with a generational thing, that a few young people were caught up by these mysterious times and got involved, and they even sometimes suggested maybe somebody put something in the water and all of us went a little crazy. But the reality is that the 60s was a period that was characterized by the Chinese as an era within which there was great disorder under the heavens. And the reality is that revolution was the main trend in the entire world in the 60s, not just in Philadelphia. But everywhere in the world, oppressed people had risen up and were fighting for their freedom. And they were fighting all over Latin America. In fact, the 60s were opened with the great revolution in Cuba in 1959 that overthrew a U.S. puppet government under Batista, where the U.S. held Cuba as a whorehouse for white people and a gambling den for wealthy white people and gangsters and what have you. It was Cuba that opened up the 60s. It was, we saw the 60s
All right, we are back, and
Yeah, we are.
in effect, I want to get to some of the comments if you want to, or do you think we should just roll with the punches and?
Well, I mean,
continue
it totally depends on you. I think we should definitely let people know who they were just listening to.
Yeah, the speaker we just had on was Comrade Laith Marouf from Free Palestine TV. You can support them at freepalestine.video. Over on YouTube, they have their own channel as well. Very, very, it's hard to not be like a fanboy in this case, because I have such a deep-rooted respect for the work that Laith does, i.e. the same work that I try and emulate or would like to if I had proper funding. But I'm super, super grateful that Laith was on. He'll be back on, I'm pretty sure, sometime next week if I can lock that in. I'm just really excited that we were able to get out some talking points, and he actually brought something up that me and you have spoken about extensively, which is we have individuals out here that still till this day believe that electoral politics is going to save or enact liberation. It will not. And so I, in the next week or so, will be watching like a hawk, PSL, the Green Party, and Cornel West, and seeing where they are. And again, well, who knows? Some other things that were brought up is the fact that we've been asking for individuals to go to indigenous communities, councils, and start working reciprocity with their government systems and start creating, essentially a game plan to combat cop cities, to combat, corporate imperialism, all of it. Yes. And Laith highlighted that and basically said, like, all of the resources that were put into advocating for a third party could have easily been put into fortifying some type of resistance coalition with amongst all indigenous populations that live here on Turtle Island. And so it says right here, or what did she say?
Said anyone who runs to be the leader of a settler occupation has decided they are a colonizer.
Exactly. They have completely made themselves complicit in that. And so, yeah, I know that there's an argument going on in the chat right now between two people. So I'm going to just let them hash that out. It's not my beef. Right. Yeah, but I want to, for us at least, to go over why Trump winning, again, what was spoken earlier, does not change anything. It just continues and propels mass escalation. And they have the dude who's willing to fucking kill billions of fucking people, millions of people, for the continuation and expansion of imperialism. And I think that shit is whack. That individuals, again, it's hard to explain, dude, when we've gone over it like 4 times to, like, I feel like in most cases, like, we repeat ourselves,
For sure, but like that's the nature of what we're talking about, right? Is that we understand that there's only one way out of this, and so
Laith is in the back half of he's in the first hour, so we're 13 minutes into our second hour, so you can go and tune in you can tune back if you guys want. I know people are probably tuning in because Laith is here, but Laith doesn't do 3-hour live streams. So Laith was here for an hour.
We didn't want him to, though.
Yeah, it's because he's a busy individual and is living under siege right now, literally.
Yes.
And so, he takes
any time that he's gracious enough to give us, we will accept.
Exactly.
Whole cloth.
Exactly. But yeah, going to turn back, you can watch that first hour and get all the good shit
you need.
All the Laith you need. Yeah. Wow. No, I think we could probably get into maybe some mainstream news in regards to the elections, but also point out and highlight some things that we've done in the past. It might take me a minute to get all the videos up.
If you don't mind,
go ahead.
Is I think that we should stay on this subject for just a second longer, because I think it's really important that people understand that, like, the colonial question is the question, right? And it is the contradiction that we need to face. And I think that this election has highlighted it more than anything, that the colonial question is the question that must be dealt with right now, first and foremost. And so any kind of revolutionary action or any kind of revolutionary movements people decide they want to do need to be wrapped up in the colonial question.
Well,
right.
And that's why, like, I think in the, and I didn't really get to fully explain to Laith why I have pushback on Pal Action. And my pushback isn't negative pushback at all. It's not rooted in, I think what they're doing is malarkey. Like, no, I genuinely think what they're doing is fucking fantastic, but it just needs to be done on a mass level, and it needs to be evolved. Like, is that a problem? Does that come off?
Well, and it also needs to be
for an indigenous person that's asking for shit to be a little bit fucking more radical than what it is. Like, I'm not asking for individuals to, well, I am, at this point, people need to stop being afraid of being imprisoned. If we have 80-year-olds right now that are bound by fucking imprisoned and have been incarcerated for the betterment of for standing in solidarity with the betterment of the people, then I think you could do a couple months, in the hole. You could do, an 80-year-old man who we just covered yesterday, Leonard Peltier, who goes through months on end with being in the shoe. Okay. Yep. And you're sitting here saying that you can't make that even minimal sacrifice that doesn't even equate to a fraction of what Leonard has gone through. Come on now. Where are we as a left? Where are we, quote unquote? Where are we? We're nowhere to be seen because, again, individuals have not evolved ways of doing radical means of quantitative actions for qualitative change. We haven't ratified it yet. We're still putting tomato sauce and fucking fire extinguishers and painting them on and spraying them on paintings. That have bulletproof glass over them now. So if you throw soup on them, it doesn't work.
That's the thing. Yeah, is I think what we both agree on, and I think what Laith also agreed on is that, like, revolutionary times call for revolutionary actions, right?
Okay, and you're getting blocked for this, dude, and I'm not even going to be putting it on the. I don't deal with stuff like that. That is fucking racist,
right?
To try and say that Arabs are the reason that Trump won is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We live under an imperial core.
Yes.
Where individuals idolize fucking fascism. Any person wearing a red hat that says "Make America Great Again" says, "I want to have a slave." That's what that fucking hat needs to say, because that's exactly what we're reverting to right now.
But like, if you had those,
they won the House, they won the U.S., and he has his fucking Supreme Court, and he's had it for fucking 12 years. Okay.
If we had those Roddy Piper "They Live" glasses, right?
Yeah. If we had the "They Live"
would. That's what those hats would say when you put the glasses on.
Yeah,
the "Make America Great" hats would. If you had those glasses, you put them on, they would say, "I want a slave."
Yeah, to try and blame a whole demographic of people for an election race, leveraging a fascist in the position. No, I'm not gonna fucking believe that, and no, I'm not gonna tolerate it on my network. You're not gonna. I'm not gonna sit here and demonize, Muslims for even voting. I'm not going to do that. And for you to come in here thinking that shit was fucking dialectical, dog, you again shove it where the sun don't shine.
Yeah, you got us fucked up if you think that shit flies here.
Exactly. I'm a decolonialist. Okay, I don't fuck around with racism. I don't fuck around with misogyny. I don't fuck around with Islamophobia. I don't fuck around with anybody. Fuck around and you get banned. Okay, you get banned for life on this network. I don't give a shit.
Nope.
I don't give a shit.
Well, and I think that's the bigger point too, right? Is that we're like the oppressed minorities. They are always going to take the brunt of whatever society it has to offer. And until we are collectively willing to stand up with the most oppressed, whether it be our disabled or our indigenous brothers and sisters, or our, the African diaspora, or whoever, and everyone. Until we do that, we're constantly going to be stuck in this cycle where the most oppressed of us get the blame for everything bad that's happening in a world where the powerful have complete control, which is a completely bonkers thing that completely happens every time, is that people have no smoke for the people in power, but they have all the smoke for the people subjected to that power. It's and that's what I think I was trying to get across when I was talking about Marxism with Laith was not the Marxism himself, but the colonial question itself. You're right.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's the point. Like you can call it whatever you want, but like self-determination and decolonialism should be the point and the goal.
Well, yeah, that's the end. The end result is for us to get back to our scientific ways of being as indigenous people, via by any means necessary, as Malcolm X would classify it. We as indigenous people are going to be the vanguard.
Yes.
That is not something that is going to change. Indigenous people are sick and tired of every 4 years, and even then, so the 2 year, the non-primary, elections. They all work in reciprocity to keep the same system that exploited us as indigenous people and continues to exploit us. The same system that subjugated indigenous populations to cancer. The same system that subjugated indigenous populations to seeing nukes being dropped in their homelands in the desert, and just for testing, testing purposes. This was just for testing purposes. The fact that we have seen our waterways, that they just recently found out that the U.S. has not stopped conducting test bombs in the ocean, and they were supposed to stop in 1991, i.e., stop fucking nuking our ocean, and then complaining about when mass fucking tsunamis happen.
Right.
I wonder
because
why.
It's like 90 degrees in the ocean.
It's fucking ridiculous, though. The ocean is boiling. It's been boiling.
Right.
It has no room to circumvent all the CO2 that it's supposed to collect. That's supposed to clean our airways the same way that our trees are. You're burning our trees. The guy that's standing behind Ryan in that photo, homeboy said we fix wildfires by raking our forests. Let's go back to that. This man said for people to get rakes and go and rake their forests so that they wouldn't have wildfires. This is also the same individual, like Laith said, wants to enact a bill that was created in the 1700s that has only been done 3 times.
Right.
And each time it's been done to subjugate a community or a minority or a group of people that aren't white.
Yep.
Okay? So he wants to deport individuals that, like myself, individuals that are Arab, individuals that have Muslim cultural values. He wants to annihilate them the same way that Kamala did. So I'm not going to sit here and play a game of Trump's bad, Kamala was good, and we messed up. No, they're both fucking horrible. So either which way, you were going to get, it was either going to be we wake up in the red hats, we're going to be sobbing and crying and potentially, out there, out and about doing as what they did 4 years ago, or it was going to be the blue side, sobbing and tearing up. I've seen fucking hundreds of people on TikTok crying about this. That Parker guy that's on TikTok that does all these, he's a fucking fascist.
Yes.
He's a fucking whole fascist. I was in his live for like 20 minutes. And his whole stilo is going after Trump supporters, but yet the minute that someone comes with some Marxian thought, comes with some decolonial analysis of the picture, he wouldn't be able to hold an argument, which is why I Parker from TikTok, I open and adamantly want to debate you in regards to how you talk about the indigenous lands that I am from. I think that you are a pawn. I think that you are a tool and an asset for democratic fascism. The fact that you told people to vote, regardless if it was for Trump or if it was for Kamala, the fact that you told people to vote for a warmonger, you will go down in history as someone who is complicit in advocating for the genocide of Palestinians, whether you believe that to be or not.
Well, that's the secret unheard bit from all the voting campaigns, right?
Yeah.
The secret bit, the left off bit is that, like, by not telling you who to vote for and by having a fascist on an open fascist on the ballot, you have admitted to being a fascist state, right? In that moment, in that moment right there, where you gave a fascist the ability to take over your government, which they have, and you have done nothing to stop it, which is, over the next couple of weeks, we'll see what happens, but yeah, like you that's a choice, man. And everyone who voted made it.
Yeah, and this comment right here, it says, we are horrified by being able to see Manifest Destiny live streamed on our devices built by IMF wage slave. We're seeing Manifest Destiny 3.0 and 4K going on in Palestine. We are seeing the continuation. Again, just because I say Manifest Destiny 3.0 doesn't mean that 2.0 ended, that 1.0 ended. It didn't. They still exist. They still are colonial constructs that work in reciprocity. Again, it's like the next chapter of a fucking book. You see how many pages this shit is? It's the next chapter in a stage of end stage capitalism, late stage capitalism. If we continue as a people to start really understanding, we have people that get it, but they don't get it on a level that is like what Laith and us were talking about earlier, which is, like he said, some people will not be able to hold up arms. That's just a fact. We all know that there are different facets of revolution. There are different tools. There's different job descriptions that will come at bay. Some people will be medics. Some people will be a part of the armed forces. That's all a part of it. What people fail to also or realize in that context is that they hear that and then they get real demoralized and they're like, oh, what am I going to do? There's many things that you can do. Reading or helping someone understand certain, instances or modes in time historically is an essential job in revolution. And I just want people to really understand that there is an avenue that we have, and that avenue is working with indigenous communities. You just seen right now what the third party did. They, at the last minute, decided that they were all going to come banding together after Daruba bin Wahad had asked them almost 6-7 months ago to do that, and for us to come in a coalition form that says, hey, we don't care who makes it even on the ballot. We're just all coming together because we're tired of this. We want people to understand. Look at all of this coalition that we have, all of these dialectical thinkers, all of these individuals that work in reciprocity. They did that shit at the last fucking minute. The last minute, which goes to show you that they are not willing to really look at revolution the way that it should, because they all have their own personal interests at hand. They all want the same thing, that fucking money. It all goes down to money.
Yep.
And so
money and land.
Money, land, and the continuation of their petty bourgeois lifestyle. It's really not hard to decipher. We also have, individuals that consistently try and leverage, the protest vote. I'm not blaming the protest vote on why Trump won. Trump won because Trump won. There's a bunch of fascists that we live amongst, obviously.
Trump won because we have a system that allows somebody like Trump to win.
Exactly. And what's crazy is that DeSantis created a bill that made it to where felons aren't able to run for president, but yet he won Florida and Trump is a known felon. Again, that just goes to show a convicted felon. Like we're playing.
Again, it goes back to what we were talking about.
We're playing with real guns. Yeah, I was gonna say we're playing with real guns, or playing with real guns, thinking that they're toy guns, and it's like, nah, get some realization in your head. Is like, we're gonna start having to really make things happen on a level that is oddly reminiscent to what happened in the 70s and the 60s. I'm sorry, but We are in that time period now. Lyndon B. Johnson, our contemporary version of him, is Donald Trump. Okay.
Ugh, that's a nightmare. But yeah, no, because I wanted to take it back to what we were talking about with Laith, right? Because when we were talking with Laith, we were talking about this on a global stage with the international courts, the UN, all of these bodies that were built by colonialism, right? And people are still, going to those institutions and begging them to do something about their creators, right? And it's like an iRobot situation, right? Where like they're never going to be able to attack their creators. So like the things that were built by colonialism to protect colonialism are never going to stop colonialism. And so going and talking to these bodies and trying to get them to help is not worthless, because it has a worth in that it's good to get out there for people to see. But we have to understand that it's the people that need to get to work and not rely on any institutions, period. Whether it's third parties, whether it's the UN, whether it's fucking, any of them.
And we're not asking people either to start your own it would be great, start your own organization, dude. But there are organizations out there that are actively talking about what we talk about. That are literally saying, hey, we already work in reciprocity with indigenous people. We have the comrade, the pen and the paper, who right now is working with on a reservation right now with some comrades of ours. Shout out to the pen and the paper. We have to really understand that there are other means to creating a class collaborated approach to fucking colonizing America with 3Ks, to bringing Turtle Island back to where it should be, to upholding our holistic values and bringing back true collective reasoning, true collective bargaining, true life. We are not living life right now. We are living in equivalence to what I like to call is a version of House of Cards. We are seeing for our eyes puppet regimes be put up. We are seeing individuals that should not be in power, but they're only in power because guess what? The system operates in a manner that makes it to where they get there.
Right. Yes.
I guarantee you, I wouldn't doubt it if if Agent Orange creates an executive order to ratify the Constitution to where this man has a third term.
He's wouldn't doubt about stuff like that. And he's going to try. The thing about it is, man, is this is all theater of the absurd stuff, right? This is all, and power doesn't care. Power let him do whatever he wants as long as he keeps being beholden to power, as long as he keeps acquiescing to power when it suits power, because that's the thing. At the end of the day, he's not, he's not, Hitler wasn't, none of these people are untouchable by the people that really hold power. And that's the people in that's the people on Wall Street. That's the people that run corporations. They hold the true power, and people like Donald are untouchable. We saw it 100% in 63, right? We saw a president that power didn't like any longer. And so what they do, they fucking blew his brains out.
He fucking blew his brains out. Homeboy was like, yeah, we're ridden away of checks and balances. And they're like, yep.
Yeah. Like, I don't think the CIA should exist the way that it does.
They were like, we have no gold really to back what he's talking about right now. And he's about to expose some shit in Hollywood. What the fuck are we going to do with this motherfucker? Right. And what was the call? It was Lyndon B. Johnson, and it was an orchestra, and it was orchestrated. And I've gone down my rabbit hole. I feel Mossad had a lot to do with the shooting of JFK and working in reciprocity with the CIA to make sure that these documents that were supposed to be released, I believe 5-7 years ago, to be released that haven't been. And if anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, the FBI has a certain amount of time that they're allotted to keep certain files classified so that then they can further mislead the public by thinking or by alienating this information to the point where when the truth does come out, the statutes of limitation are far gone and far past. It's time to hold people accountable. People have been dead, everything. So in regards to like what you said, yes, it was what we're seeing now is exactly what was done then. we have to understand we are back in 1963, you guys. This is what it is. This is what it's going to be for the next 4 fucking years, and it was going to be that for the next 4 years with Kamala as well. Kamala's like VP candidate literally advocated for the continuation of the destabilization of West Asia by saying that Israel has a right to fucking colonize and expand its borders.
That part. Yep.
So,
yeah. Well,
you know,
and that's a thing that me and you've talked about many times, and is that this situation is going to continue no matter who's the president, and that's the point. And hopefully that this moment in time will radicalize you instead of like lead you into despair, or lead you into depression. It will lead you to a revolutionary place. And that's the point that we are trying to make. That's what we hope that you can get from this show, is we are here to offer you hope, because there is hope, and there's hope in the people, and there's hope in the revolution, and there's hope in returning the land to the indigenous stewards who, you know, ran this continent of Turtle Island from time immemorial, right? They lived in reciprocity with this land. And then, you know, we showed up, the Europeans, and in 200 some odd years, you know, we're going to kill everything.
Yeah. And yeah, I think we probably talked as much as we could about this particular topic. I want to shout out to everybody that's still continuing to watch. You know, I know that you guys are probably thinking that Laith is not coming. Laith came in the first hour, and yeah, BRICS has been systematically dismantling the IMF colonizer economy for a decade. Yeah, they have. Comrade Ikemba, if you want to come up, let me know. I'll send the invite for actually we'll open the floor. I'll send this to everybody. How about that? I'm doing something new today.
All right. Yeah.
There's an invite link. You can follow that link. It's in the chat box. If you want to come up here, give your take on current topics, current situations. We are a donation-based network, so below is a limit. Opening up the floodgates. Exactly, comrade. Exactly. We are trying to meet a goal.
Ain't ducking, no fades.
Yeah, exactly. $420 is needed. If individuals can help out with that, that would be great. I want to say shout out to the individuals that helped yesterday with you know, getting, you know, that number down to at least to what it is. I want to say, you know, thank you to everybody that tunes in. You know, this again is a donation based network. We're running on fumes right now, and so, you know, I hope individuals can really understand the severity of this mutual aid outcry for me in this network. And so below are areas that, you know, you can help out. And if you can't, you know, if you don't feel comfortable with doing just a one time, we have a monthly subscription that you can set for whatever amount you desire. I believe I leave multitudes of options on there. You know, so I really do appreciate it. I appreciate everybody that's been watching, that's been tuning in. You know, if you want to come up on stage, again, I put a link in the description in the chat box. So I hope, you know, people followed that and come up. It's a pretty chill day. It's a chill Wednesday. You know, so yeah. Ooh, Ikemba's in the flesh. Ikemba said, yeah, I'm taking that one. What's going on, Ikemba? What's going on?
Peace. What's going on to the family? I'm over here working. I'm like, let me jump in real quick, man. Y'all getting it in. You know?
Yeah, we just had Laith on for the first hour, and so we're just kind of just bullshitting the second hour, and to say the least. But I wanted to get your thoughts on the election, man. I know last night me and you were in the group chat. I know you were texting. You were like, "This is fucking crazy," and you know, I just simply stated, I was like, "Comrade, you know, start gearing up for the continuation of imperialism and democratic fascism, because that's what's on the rise, and it was going to be 100 times more, whether it was Kamala or Trump." But you know, what are your thoughts just on you know, what you witnessed last night? Because I'm not gonna lie, I was genuinely shocked. I was genuinely shocked. and I woke up this morning, and the first thing that came to my mind was, I guarantee you, there's a bunch of people on TikTok crying their asses off because Kamala didn't win. But yeah, what are your thoughts, my guy? And welcome.
I don't know if I was shocked. I guess I would have been shocked if Kamala won. More than Trump. I felt like Trump was going to win because Kamala's campaign sucked, man. It was terrible. Every time I turned around, and I started thinking, I'm like, say that again.
You better thank a union member. That's
yeah. I was just having this conversation with some folks. I felt like I was telling them, I was like, yo, they should have had me on the campaign with Kamala. But, like she would have did better. I know that sounds crazy, like who am I? But I felt like just her messaging was completely off. It was almost as if she was just detached from what was happening in the real world, like the sentiment of people here in America. I say people here in America because some of us don't claim to be Americans, or attach ourselves to that identification. But I was telling one of the things I noticed was that she started saying working families, and I was like, somebody got in the ear. Because every time when you look at these elections, just look back. Look, it's always middle class this, middle class that. I'm going to do this for the middle class, and I'm like, what the hell? We got poor people in this country too,
right?
We got people that's homeless. We got people. I guess their votes don't matter, But when I heard her say that, I was like, all right, someone's getting in her ear, and she's trying to connect with a larger base, because more people are going to relate to you saying working families and working class families than you just saying middle class. Because some of us confused on whether we middle class or not. Like, I'm talking about me.
Well, that's the thing too, right? Is most people don't associate themselves with middle class. They associate themselves as workers, right? And so, like, it totally makes sense.
Yeah. See, I'm telling you, if I was on the campaign trail, and the and the other thing, and I know y'all probably already talked about this, like what's going on in Palestine. Man, her position, she should have took a stronger position. Even if she would have came out.
She changed it up, and it was different.
What she said?
It was different in different states. So
it was like yesterday. Yeah, and she started changing it up.
Yeah, it was like in Michigan. She was telling people that she was for a ceasefire and that she believed that the Palestinians had a right to resist. Like, basically that's what she was saying, that the Palestinians have a right to live. And she was saying that in Michigan.
Thanks, Kamala.
And then in Pennsylvania she was saying something completely opposite, completely the opposite side. So I completely agree with what you're saying in regards to, for one, she's two-faced, she's a fucking chameleon, and I call her chameleon. I don't call her chameleon because she tried to weaponize the black community to help vote her into office. That's not what I'm talking about. She's a chameleon because she works for reciprocity within imperialism. She works in reciprocity with imperialism is what I was trying to say. I don't know why I put that other word in there. Nonetheless, I didn't believe any word that came out of her mouth. I believe every word that comes out of Trump's mouth in regards to how he fucking feels, because he genuinely believes that shit. He genuinely believes everything that comes out of his mouth is truthful. Okay.
But I also know that, like, he's capable of saying two things in the same sentence that are contradictory.
We're not going to be.
I think that's the thing with Trump, though, is like, we know that this guy's an a-hole. We know we're going to get the thing is what we have to understand. The people who are going to support Trump, they're going to support Trump. There's not too much Kamala Harris could have done to win that support. I think, but I think what she could have done, she was losing a lot of support from those people who are totally against Trump and would have supported. Like, there's probably people who didn't vote. There's people who voted like for a third party.
I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote. I didn't vote for a third party. You said that, and just the camera time. The camera time was off.
hey, like
I did not vote this year, man. Fuck that.
And then there's people who did, vote for Trump.
Yeah.
There's people who said, hey, you know what? I'm going to go Republican this year. So, but all of those people, she could have won, right? If her messaging was totally off. I think like her position on Palestine, going back to like, I would have told her, and if you're going to say these things though, you gotta be real about it. We're not just saying things to win votes, but she'd have took a stance where, okay, if you want to come out and say, yeah, you support Israel, Israel should exist and be a state, at the same time come out and say, but the genocide that's being committed in Palestine needs to stop. And when I'm president, we are going to end this conflict in Palestine. We're going to make sure that they get humanitarian aid, and if not, like this whole 30-day thing that they pulled like a couple of weeks ago, 30 days, they got 30 days to let the humanitarian aid. Like, come on, forget all of that,
We just went over yesterday the UNRWA and Matt Miller, the Speaker of the House, one of the speakers of the House, is on there and talking about, we have 90 days to review the document that Israel has and whatnot. And I'm like,
how many people going to lose their life?
Me and Ryan deciphered it and was like, so this dude knows exactly who wrote that fucking letter. It was America. It was U.S. that wrote that letter that told fucking Israel to do what it's doing. And he's saying that he needs 90 days to review a document that was constructed by the same
basically
that he fucking wrote, basically. I find that to be the most hilarious shit in the world. And again, they don't say the quiet part out loud in regards to what they feel. He said also, we're not going to need the whole 90 days to be able to look over the document that we constructed to see if there's any flaws in what we said, and I'm saying what I interpreted. He was like, we're gonna need 83
serious
days.
bureaucracy.
He was like, we won't need 90, we'll need 83 days. So we'll need 1 week less than our allotted time. That's the manipulation, the delusion of this system, is that people will believe Matt Miller. They'll believe that he's standing in some form of solidarity, or that he's standing on the right side of history, when really he is in lockstep, and he is a squire. He's a clown. He's a person who comes on, and tells lies to the public.
Well, in that thing we watched, man, the reporter gets in him for that exact thing, right? Because he starts laughing about some shit that the reporter was saying. So he starts laughing about it, and the reporter's like, "Oh, so you think all this death and destruction is funny? Yeah, it seems like an inappropriate time to be laughing, guy."
Fucking Dracula, Dracula and shit from Sesame Street. Every time I hear him, I like 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, it's wild. It's wild. And back to like the humanitarian aid in regards, to Palestine. Under a Trump administration or a Harris administration, there was going to be no humanitarian aid that was going to reach the Palestinian people. We have to understand that imperialism works for mass escalation. So they're not going to put someone at the head of the state who wants to de-escalate a situation that causes that they want to be mass escalated because it's the needs of imperialism. That's not how shit works. It never has worked that way. Trump is the individual that they know is going to propel and aggravate Iran to the point where we might potentially see nuclear arms be used against Israel. At this point, I would not fucking doubt it. I would not doubt it. We are living in a time period where people need to start locking in mentally. They need to start locking in mentally and start understanding that Trump ain't going to save shit. Kamala wasn't going to save shit. The third party candidates weren't going to save shit. They're right now juggling on what they're going to do for the next 2 fucking years, because they ran out of the money has ran out. So now they got to put a bill into the federal government to say, hey, we spent thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars on this campaign. We're going to need some of that money back. Again, it's a mirage. It's a smoke and screen effect that is American imperialism. This guy is going to cause
But you know, like the thing about
Biden administration was fucking horrendous in sending billions of arms to Israel, just know it's about to ramp up by 100 times, because this dude has already classified how he stands in reciprocity with Israel, and what his main goal is, which is to continue the destabilization of West Asia, because it helps needs.
That's interesting. I'm interested to really see how he's going to act. You could be like spot on with that, because I know that he said some things.
Yeah, Trump won't help.
Say
Trump
that again.
No, there's a comment on here. There's so many people in here. You already know me. I love the ban button.
What they say about? Oh, that was troll.
That he won't help. Like, the most obvious thing that somebody could say right now.
That Trump won't help.
Trump ain't gonna help us.
Oh, help us.
Anybody, but he's not gonna help us. He's not gonna help Palestine. He's not gonna help.
Yeah.
But the point I was going to make is, like, how much support will Israel really get with Trump? And I could be completely wrong. I'm just thinking, because Trump is his whole thing is dismantling shit, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, he don't like spending money outside of like America on institutions and so forth. Remember, he was like NATO. Like, what the hell is NATO? Like, what?
Right. Well, that'll be interesting too.
The United States. It's like, what the fuck is NATO?
Push that he's a Russian plant narrative to the test, right? This is gonna put.
I think the Dems for 4 years are gonna propagate this narrative that the Russians helped him win this election.
Which I think about that, 'cause I'm like, with Trump, I mean, he can probably go over there and sit with Putin. Like,
right. Well, that's the thing, right? And so we're at war with Russia right now. And so, like, what does that look like under a Trump presidency? Because I don't think that changes. Because as much as Trump likes to talk, he doesn't go against the military industrial complex, man. He doesn't do that. Like, he does in some like ceremonial ways, but he doesn't ever like do. I mean, shit, his fucking first Secretary of State was the Exxon guy, right? Mm-hmm. And he made John Bolton his fucking war minister, or whatever the fuck that guy is.
The Jets, the Jets owner was a part of his cabinet as well. The same guy, who fired the Salal, who was the coach
made John Bolton the war minister.
Well, yeah, like the Secretary of Defense. Yeah, John Bolton was his Secretary of Defense for like the last year, I think, of his presidency. And because he was jumping all over the place trying to find people that would be loyal to him, right? Mm-hmm. But the point is that he, him, like Kamala, like, Obama famously, got that list from Wall Street of people that they wanted in his cabinet. And he famously put like 10 of them in, or however many of them in. And but the same's here, right? So this is going to be an interesting for the people that act like he's a Russian plant or this or that, like and because he's talked about dismantling NATO, but will he?
There's something that he wouldn't have the power to do. I don't know. Like, I don't think that he can unilaterally make that happen. There's going to be a whole lot of pushback against that. Yeah. But I think if he could, he would, though. To be quite honest. People looking at my.
But then again, that's a good thing, right? Like, dismantling NATO is a good thing.
Yeah, and that's my thing. Like, I feel like his foreign policy, I think it will work in the interest of an international movement against colonialism. I don't think he's like, so, there'll be people in his ears, but I don't know. I just get a sense that he don't really understand geopolitics that well. If you get a strong group around him, of course, that always helps out. But that's what I get a sense. So even with Israel, he's going to support Israel, but how far is he going to go? I don't know. I'm waiting to see. I don't think he's going to do anything for Palestine, but at the same time, if Iran gets him, Iran is involved. If Iran attacks, like, what's going to be the move? And Trump isn't president right now. It's still on Biden, for the next couple of months.
There's a buffer period right now that we as individuals that are radical thinkers could utilize to we have to start understanding that time is precious now. And these 4 years that are coming up, time is precious, because I'm sorry, in 2028, I'm not going to be voting. And I would hope by then that millions of people here, in the occupied territories of Turtle Island will start to understand that it's as described in the comments, it's cosplay. It's nothing more than a facade to uphold the structure that is imperialism. Nothing more, nothing less. And so,
but we do know that when Iran first got in, Trump criticized Biden for not immediately going after their oil fields, right? Which would have been a fucking disaster.
That would have inevitably started.
Yeah, I mean,
they Trump be talking shit too.
Right. And that's part of it too. Like, Trump's literally wild. Like, and you don't know. He'll say anything out of his mouth.
Absolutely. But I feel like for whatever reason, the international community, because Trump is a businessman, I feel like the international leaders, at least like with your Russias, your Israels, like the leadership and the European leaders, even if they don't like them, they kind of respect them. It's just a different. I don't know if Kamala, as a matter of fact, I don't think she would have gotten the same respect that they're going to be giving Trump. I mean, the 4 years he was in, that's the the relationship that he had with all of these different foreign powers. I mean, not too much. I'm trying to think back, like not too much like really happened on his watch. The Ukraine war was already going on, I think, going back to 2012, right?
Most of the stuff that Trump did were more of a domestic occupational, like within the occupied territories. A lot of his 4 years was dedicated to getting the Supreme Court to be what he wanted it to be, which is it's his Supreme Court, it's his Senate, it's his House, and now he has the presidency. So we are seeing the climax of 2020, Project 2025. Literally, we are going to see the climax of it. If people really thought that Project 2025 starts in 2025, no, it's the culmination of all of this work, that all of this bipartisan work within the imperial core, between the Obama administration, between the Biden administration, between the Clinton administration, between the Bushes and the Bush's administration. They all have worked in reciprocity. This, come to this point here. Trump's administration, all he did was bolster it. The Obama's administration built the cages that Trump put the kids in, and Biden just silenced it all. That's literally the process. They all work in reciprocity, and I think people don't understand bipartisanship to its fullest degree.
And just to further this point, this is the last thing I'll say about this as far as like Trump internet, because all of this is just me again. I told y'all I'm like a pattern guy. I try to look to see how people behave.
You're an analytic guy.
And so I could be wrong, but Trump, I think like Trump is going to focus a lot on the economy, and he's going to be looking at all of this war shit is bad for business. Like, I feel like that's going to be his approach.
You guys think we're getting stimulus checks?
Stimulus checks?
Yeah, you
don't
guys
start talking about.
You guys think the checks is coming back? You guys think them checks?
Oh my goodness,
that unemployment? You think that unemployment is coming back?
They gonna be screaming another four more years, man.
PPP loans.
They gonna be like 4 more years. Like, I can't run again. All right, we're gonna have to.
That's the indoctrination of the masses of people, man.
That's exactly what Isaac was talking about earlier. Was that he's gonna try to finagle his way into another 4 years after this 4.
Hey.
It happened.
The people, obviously, I mean, the guy got over 70 million votes. I don't know where is that now.
And look where this is going too. If he loses, or if he goes to his 4 years, and homeboy says, "Hey, I want to go for a third term," it's decided by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is his Supreme Court. It's the people who he put and appointed. So they're going to work to make sure that this dude never leaves office. So again, people gear up because fascism is no longer hiding. It's right fucking in front of us. And 4 fucking K, they got their guy. You know,
we gonna get another.
You know, Donnie's good. You know,
but it's gonna be another Republican administration, even if he don't run. I'm telling you, Republicans are gonna win the next. Well, depending on what's happening internationally, I feel like that is going to
have one tool. The Democrats only have one tool left, and that's fucking slick, fucking Rick Gavin Newsom, right now. That's their last. That's their last approach to trying to legitimize that.
Ain't nobody voting for no California.
Hey, you know, I'm not voting for the mother. Fuck him.
Hey, Tupac is the only West Coast, cat that nah. But
I'm like, that man was from New York. What you talking about?
Nah, Tupac, West Side, baby. But it's this gonna be an interesting 4 years. But I feel like the Democrats, man, I feel like they're not gonna be able to recover.
Well, again, this is just going to open up the floodgates for there to be only one party now. The Democratic Party it's trash. It's been trash like the Republican Party, but it's been trash because they consistently keep manipulating society into believing that they're not an aesthetic of fascism, and they uphold the values of fascism the same way that the Republican Party does. And so I think people now are just going to look at the fact that they've seen Kamala lose, they've seen Hillary lose, they've seen I think what this gravitates towards one of two things: people get radical or people become fascist. And at this point, we got to start advocating for people to become radical. Which is why networks like this and networks like yours, Ikemba, are vital, essential. BPM Reloaded.
Oh yeah, we about to turn it up. All of our platforms going to turn up, and we need to turn it up. And I think like people too, really need to understand, and many of us do. Like both of these parties are bourgeois parties at the end of the day. The Democratic Party, Republican Party, they're both bourgeois parties. And if you look at the Democrats and the reason why a lot of people are just like turning away from, well, maybe not, this isn't the only reason, but one of the reasons why people are turning away from the Democratic Party is because of like, it's sort of like this paternalistic relationship that they're trying to build that they have built and that they have with the people. Like this, the paternalism, people are like, don't like that. Like this, it's sort of like this, you feel like you are, it's almost like they're looking down at the masses.
Not almost.
Like y'all ain't smart enough, like to make these decisions. And the Republicans on the other hand, it's just like, like at least they will respect the masses to be able to, they want you to make decisions. They feel like everybody has the potential. If you don't, it's because of something, about you individually or personally. Right. And they think that everybody has the opportunity. But, with the Democrat, even though that, there's contradictions there, but I think like with the Democrats, they just feel like you guys aren't, smart enough. The bourgeois, class, and those who are starting to be bourgeois. Right. And so when you don't vote Democrat, it's something like they try to, talk about Donald Trump thinks that Americans are stupid or calls other people stupid. No, that's the Democrats think that people are stupid. You know what I'm saying? If you, especially you don't support, you just don't know no better, right? And so that's the thing that I've been feeling with the Democratic Party, man. And now this whole thing it's about to be all about black men. Black men, are the reason why.
Black men cause this. Again, these I'm glad that you brought that up. These are going to be the narratives that roll out for the next 4 years. Black men will be blamed for Trump being in office. Muslims will be blamed for Trump being in office. Voting third party will be one of the blames for why Trump is in office. Again, us on screen know imperialism works in very tricky way.
Hell
But in
yeah.
this case, it worked correct in the manner of putting the person that they know is going to escalate issues on a mass level, on an international level, is going to do so, or keep them in the same, keep those atrocities abroad continuous, whether it's through mass escalation or whether it's just keeping it. You know, that's what his job is. And again, gear up, you guys, gear up. I don't know if you want to stick around for more. We're gonna take a quick break. And if you want to come back, we'll probably have some. I'll have some articles lined up. But you already know I love O'Malley, Chairman O'Malley. Got to get him on the network. And so
yeah, hey, you know he gonna come out with a statement on this.
Yep,
probably real soon. If not today,
I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm all ears. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, we're going to take this quick break. We'll be right back. Enjoy some Chairman O'Malley used to tell us, speaking at the Oxford Union in regards to United Africa against imperialism, arguing that versus the United States of Africa. So we'll be back, you guys. And I think this is a break for Black Power, so a shout out to Black Power Media Reloaded. You can find me and Ikemba over there Tuesdays through Fridays. I know I haven't been on, just to keep it short. I'll be back full time.
You reloaded?
I've reloaded. Took me a minute, but I reloaded.
All right.
So we'll be back after this break, y'all. But enjoy this decolonial interlude.
My unconditional solidarity with President Maduro and the government and people of Venezuela, who are currently under attack, savage attack, by the declining world hegemon of the United States. I think it's absolutely necessary to say that coming from that country, and especially looking at the fact that the United States travels the world preening, presenting itself as the guardian of democracy and the rights of the peoples around the world, where the reality is that Africans who are colonized in the United States represent at least half of the largest prison population in the world. There are more Africans in prison in the United States than there are people in Djibouti or in Equatorial Guinea. And so we find it very difficult, also recognizing that by their own estimates, it would take 228 years for the income of Africans colonized in the United States to equal that of the colonial white population. So it is absolutely necessary for me to stand here today before you expressing total opposition to the United States government terroristic actions against the people of Venezuela with an attempt to starve the people into opposition to their government. Mr. President, brothers and sisters, comrades, it is also necessary for us to say that this question of a closer union with Africa, or between Africans, or within Africa, is not a purely academic question, despite the fact that this debate is occurring within the pinnacle of bourgeois academia. That there is a natural, historical inclination for Africa and African people to be united, which is one of the reasons I am here today. The truth of the matter is that this discussion about the unity of Africa, union of Africans, started much earlier than any incursion, as it might be characterized, of China or the Trump administration into Africa. The reality is that Africa came under assault some 600 years ago when Portugal first came and captured African people and initiated the process that would begin capitalism and would establish and consolidate the identity of Europeans in the world. It is a reality that capitalism rests upon a foundation of African slavery. Africans were first capital. And in order for this to occur and to last, it was absolutely necessary to keep African people divided so that we could not resist this horrible incursion on Africa that continues up to now. I think it's important to be able to say that. I think that we have to say that we've seen example after example by African people to unite. We've seen what used to be warring tribes in this geographical terrain that we occupy at this moment, able to achieve a sense of sameness that people refer to as nations, founded on a common economy that came from slavery and colonialism. This is the basis of the unity that we see. If there is a problem with the European Union today, it is because the foundation, the economic foundation of capital, of imperialism, is being stressed by the struggles of the oppressed peoples of the world to take back their resources from this parasite that bleeds Africa, that bleeds the world, that bleeds Afghanistan, that bleeds the people of Yemen who are dying by the thousands even as we have this discussion. This is the basis of a Brexit. It can't stand together anymore because the host is rejecting the parasite, and it's creating crisis throughout Europe and throughout the imperialist world. I think it's necessary, brothers and sisters, to say that there has been a natural trajectory by African people for closer union. We know that we're talking about having this discussion in part because in 1884-85, Europeans sat at a table in Berlin, Germany, not a single African there, and carved up Africa into the territories that we now sometimes call countries and illogically refer to as nations. Africans didn't do that. It was Europe that did that. It was Europe and imperialism that required Africa to be divided so that the resources of Africa, both human and material, could come and pave the streets in London and grow the buildings in Amsterdam and bring clean water to New York, while the streets in Sierra Leone are not paved. And the people in Sierra Leone do not have clean water. And there's no national electric grid there. It is necessary to keep Africa divided by European imperialism and by all the imperialism in order to continue to suck the resources from Africa so that cell phones could exist here, so that Steve Jobs and the others could achieve some great notoriety from the coltan that comes from Congo, where Leopold killed at least 12 to 15 million Africans in order to conquer and keep Africa in the condition it's in today. We talk about a united Africa and African Union because of what European imperialism has done to Africa to keep us divided. We know it's true. We saw 100 years or so ago, Marcus Garvey organized the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities Leagues that stretched across the globe. More than 11 million African people everywhere were connected to this. Africa for Africans, at home and abroad. That was the cry. Not Africans for Nigerians that didn't even exist until the British created it in 1915. And Flora Shaw, the mistress who would become the wife of Frederick Lugard, came up with the name nigger area, not this false national consciousness that has been imposed on Africans around the world. So that when the Portuguese found shrimp on West Africa and then named it for the Portuguese word for shrimp, Cameroon, it is not true that they are shrimp despite the fact that the people call themselves Cameroonians today. It is a false national consciousness. The false national consciousness that created the American Negro, that created the Black Brit, and the Afro-Swede. We are one Africa, one nation, and we must have closer union. But in order for that to happen, it has to be a revolutionary union. The Organization of African Union, created on May 25th, 1963 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, was part of an effort to circumvent efforts by Kwame Nkrumah to build a single union of African states. And instead, we come up with an Organization of African Union that codified the colonial borders that were created by Europe in 1884 and 85. We have to be able to break out of this, but it's going to take revolution in order to do this. African revolution in order to do this. African revolution that will destroy imperialism and the world economy that's responsible for the growing immiseration of the masses of people around the world. Uhuru.
Nothing but bars.
Right.
I can't get enough of the comrade speaking, the elder. We are going to be getting into in the second half into some Palestine news. I know we had Laith on. Laith came on at the beginning, and it was dope. He said some things that on this network we've been advocating for. So to just hear from the other side of the waters, so to speak, to hear from someone who's based in West Asia, basically say the same thing that we were saying, which is, you know what, indigenous communities, we need to start working in reciprocity with these indigenous government systems that still exist, and start fortifying and making our own compounds, making our own defense survival programs, making our own breakfast programs, making our own educational programs. Again, working in reciprocity, that collective solidarity, that cultural solidarity is what's needed right now, especially in the wake of 4 more years of Trump. You know, for people, it's again, they got who they wanted. Let me see right here. I'm looking at Press TV in hopes that I can get.
Hey, I was gonna say, make sure to pull me into any of that, you know, that institution building you're talking about. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have to build something separate from this system that we're a part of.
And that's essentially what Chairman O'Malley Yeshitela has done. Is he's, you know, I think you could speak to that firsthand if you will, if you'd like to, you know, the importance of the Uhuru movement, you know, and you know what it has done in even in the wake of the destabilizing of even the Black radical tradition, even the co-opting of it. You know, if you could speak to, you know, just the importance of it while I get some articles ready for us.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a member of the Uhuru movement since 2005. So, you know, just being active and being, you know, around the chairman. I mean, there's been moments where I have been dealing with my contradictions and haven't been able to contribute as much as I want or would like to. But over those years, man, just being a part of the building of dual and contending power, and just the strategy, you know, revolutionary strategy, and you know, because you know, I consider myself a revolutionary, and it's because of this movement and having the theoretical framework that the chairman, Mali Yeshitela, has gave us as far as African internationalism, using that as a theory to guide our work. And so, part of that is building dual and contending power, which is, institutions that are uh, needed to help us resist, to be able to resist the colonial state, and also to be able just to live, to survive, to be able to not be dependent on someone else, right? Right now, the masses of African people are dependent on the enemy's institutions. And so, this is part of the strategy, is to build that dual and contending power where we have independent institutions to address all the needs of African people. So whatever contradictions that come about as a result of colonialism, rather than have the colonizers who are creating the problems in our community, all of the social ills that we experience in our community, instead of having the colonizer develop those solutions for it, we develop our own solutions for those problems. Because it's a serious contradiction when you have to depend on your enemy to be able to solve the problems, the very problems that they're causing in the first place. So that's what the Hoodoo movement is about. And so shout out to them, shout out to the chairman, African People's Socialist Party, and the International Democratic People's Hoodoo movement is who I organize with, which is the mass organization of the party. So yeah, you got those articles together.
You're funny.
Let's go. I feel like
right.
I'm recruiting right now, man.
No, shoot, we need to in this case.
Yeah, we need recruiting. That's a big part of what time it is.
Yeah, and the work that you do, especially for We Charge Colonialism, is highly effective too. I'm a avid watcher. I just want to say right now,
Hey, appreciate that.
I love when Frank goes on his own tangents, and you guys let Frank be Frank, man. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I get so it's like,
yeah, he's the heart of
yeah,
We Charge Colonialism. Man.
Yeah, he's super dope. We see here that Iran warns of calculated and precise response to Israeli aggression, and so we had Laith on, and I know we went into the elections and we got into how relative questions regarding the West, and so we really didn't have time when he was here to talk about in regards to the current conflict and destabilization that's going on in West Asia, particularly in South Lebanon, an area for which that in the beginning of the show, Laith had stated that he had been traveling to. He had, just got back from filming. And so, I want to really emphasize that for those that can probably believe still that there isn't going to be any mass escalation to these issues, we're far past that. We're far past any of these power, especially Iran. I think Iran is just kind of sick and tired of being the bigger person, for lack of better terms. And they are really telling the world that if you guys aren't going to follow international law, then we're going to make our own international law, which is we're just going to start packing up terrorists here and there, i.e. America, when we see fit. And we're going to actively combat this. And we see them doing it on a plural level. De-dollarization, standing in resistance with Palestinians, joining the Palestinian resistance force, and opposing Zionism and being anti-imperialist, as it directly affects their regions. So I want to get your guys' thoughts, on those who genuinely feel that this is gonna wither away, but even more so, my antennas are, so to speak, are going off, and they have been since yesterday. Iran knows exactly what it's doing, and it's doing it in a way that, again, it's like it's like we're waiting for the next episode, like of a new, of a series, and that's how I feel in regards to how I'm waiting for Iran to precisely strike military infrastructure. we have to have a conversation about this, and so I'm hoping that that we can. Yeah, go ahead, my guy. So in
Yeah, no.
right, yeah, I see.
Yeah, I have been, in the same boat as you, right? Waiting on pins and needles for whatever's coming next, because Iran has said it multiple times, and everything backs up the idea that they are completely in the right to do whatever is necessary to protect their people, right? And Israel has proven time and again that it will put their people in danger in any way it feels like it wants to. Yeah. And so they have every right to go and to go on the offensive if they want to. And they've chosen not to so far, because like we've said before on this this network, that the only reason World War III hasn't started is because of the humanity of the savages, quote unquote, right? Like the people that they hold in lesser esteem, like, are the ones holding all out destruction at bay, because the civilized world is gunning and itching to burn shit to the ground. And it's only because of the humanity of the oppressed that they haven't yet, right?
Yeah, and I want to play a video for you guys. If I can't get Professor Saeed Marandi on, then we we will be playing videos until then.
Right.
So suck it
until you hear us, sir.
Yeah, suck it, Fed. All right. Let me share the screen. I had to wait for that ad to go off.
Ahmed Morandi from the University of Tehran joins us now. Thank you very much for being with us, Professor. I just wonder, first of all, what has Iran achieved by this attack on Israel? Very few of the missiles got through. It, in effect, failed. Many people are calling it a humiliation for Iran.
I think that's a lot of wishful thinking on behalf of you and your colleagues at Sky News. It was a massive blow to the Israeli regime. And the history of this conflict doesn't go back to last year. It is 76 years of ethno-supremacism, ethnic cleansing, and this is a racist regime that you support. What the problem is that you cannot recognize that.
Hold on.
These people keep inviting him on to their networks to just get fucking lit up.
Just get obliterated with like
yeah.
useless words. It's hilarious. But I'm laughing because I believe everything that Professor Morandi says, and I know it to be true.
Right, no, for sure.
And this dude is just pandering.
When he just fucking straight up called him to his face, like, look, man, this shit's on you too. Don't forget.
He was like,
Mr. Sky News.
He was like, I wouldn't doubt that because you guys are Sky News. But no, I know we're sorry for the people that we lost. Nonetheless, Sky News is owned by Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch also owns Piers Morgan Uncensored. Rupert Murdoch also is on a list of individuals that Netanyahu has prioritized as backers and individuals that he trusts to spew narratives that are false. So again, when we look at in the context of Professor Morandi, he is well within his high regard and his high respectable status as an economist, as someone who is a geopolitical analyst, someone who's a political scientist, is completely accurate when he says things. Just know it's truthful. Just know that this is not a man that pulls some shit out of his ass, and tries to make it truthful. That's what America does. Okay. Right. That's what imperialism does. That's not what Professor Saeed Marandi does.
Well, that's what makes him such a good communicator, right? Is that he's able to, on the spot, give these people everything that they deserve on their networks to their faces, right? And he's unflappable. So when they come at him with all of their bullshit, he can listen with his smirk and just systematically take down every talking point that they just said. That's not an easy thing to do, and he makes it look seamless and
flawless.
Yeah. And he has an absolute perfect record of going on mainstream media. He is undefeated.
And for those who don't know, I'll just call it out. The feds have blocked my ability to email Professor Saeed Marandi. And so I am trying to, vigorously to somehow, some way get a conversation with Saeed, but it's not looking like it's going to be doable unless I ask for amnesty in another country and completely move my entire life out of the territories that I'm from, which I don't intend to do. So we'll just have to work with what we have via YouTube. And shout out to Danny Haifong, shout out to Ben Norton, shout out to all the individuals that Indian Global Left, I think what is it called, Discourse Works, all of the individuals that have Professor Marandi on. You guys make it very possible for individuals in the West like myself that to do what we do, to continue to do what we do, and to get the positive narrative. So I just want to shout out a large group of individuals: Richard Medhurst, George Galloway to a certain extent. But yeah, thank you guys.
That the difference between you and us is that you support racism and racial hierarchy, and we reject it. And the Israeli regime, if they dare strike back at Iran, we will hit them much harder next time. We will beat them into submission.
Well, they will strike back, won't they? No sovereign country can put up with having 180 ballistic missiles fired at them. So they will hit back, they will hit hard, and they could well hit your nuclear facilities, your oil production installations. They could cause Iran serious damage.
Listen, instead of the rhetoric, be real, because you're misleading your own people. Iran has countless underground missile sites with hundreds of thousands of missiles across the country. They were made after the US invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan to deal with a potential war with the United States. So this puny regime, it is not a state, it is a colony. It is a racist, ethno-supremacist colony, which the people call themselves the chosen people. Unlike you, we do not believe in chosen people. And the Palestinian people on that land who've been displaced and pushed into Gaza and who've been slaughtered regularly over 76 years, we will not stand for that.
I'm tired of being nice.
All people in the whole of Palestine must be equal. The Israeli regime, if they strike Iran, we will hit them much harder next time. And they can pretend that they got away, but we hit them very hard last night. We hit their bases. And unlike the Israeli regime, which constantly carries out slaughter and genocide and was carrying out a Holocaust in Gaza, we struck their military targets, because unlike you, we actually care about human rights, not you.
Professor, let me just say that we're on the verge of an all-out war, or certainly a war between.
You're on mute, dude.
Shit, fuck. I just have to point something out. I have to point something out. Homeboy at the top is just eating every fucking thing. Like,
Yes.
There's like 3 people distinctively in his ear. Like, you need to like just ignore it. Just ignore it. Okay. Here's the script.
Right.
Here's the script. Read the prompter. Just here it is. Read or no. How about this?
Stay on message. Stay on message.
Like, fuck. He just answered that question. Fuck. Okay. He is looking again. Whew.
Packed the fuck up on your own network.
On your own network. And professor is like straight up coming in, straight up like CM Punk.
Get the fuck out of here with that.
Shout out to CM Punk, who's pro-Palestinian. He's anti-fucking genocide. He's one of the greatest. Again, best in the world. Shout out. That's just me being a fanatic right now. Let's get to this video, and then we'll figure out
Israel and Iran. It could be a war that Iran loses. If Iran does lose that war, do you think that the current Iranian regime could survive a defeat? Because that is if what you say is right, and Iran is going to hit back even harder, that could be where this all ends up.
Iran will not hit back harder. Iran will hit back much harder. The head of the Iranian forces says Iran will target and destroy all of the Israeli regime's infrastructure. This was the tip of the iceberg. Iran will lose no war. The Israeli regime will. It is time for you and others to end your racism and to end your support for the superior race, and to accept that all people in Palestine have equal rights, and the Palestinian people have a right of return. Jews, Christians, and Muslims are equal. Unlike what you say, they are equal, and we will accept nothing less than that. The regime must go, and all people must be treated equally. Right. And if the only thing, there's no doubt that Israel will lose, but the only variable here is the United States. If the United States gets involved, have no doubt, the U.S. will be swept out of Iraq by the Iraqi resistance, and all its assets in the Persian Gulf will be destroyed. All those regimes that U.S. bases will be destroyed, and the oil and gas markets will cause a situation where the global economy will collapse and millions of people will be on the move. So be careful about making stupid mistakes, and the West should stop with its arrogance and get real for once.
Jesus.
Oh, shout out to Habibi. Oh, okay. So we're gonna break that down, and then we're gonna get into this article that you sent me via messages. I just finally got around to seeing it. Sorry.
Okay.
What Professor Saeed Marandi is talking about is that Iran has fortified its mental, its physical, and its people in general, to its military in specific, for an all-out escalation with the U.S. They're fully prepared for it. Saeed Marandi has always said that Israel is like a fly to them.
Yes.
So we have to, in many capacities, look at what Saeed Marandi has to say as truthful. I'm getting a phone call from the pen and the paper. Can you take over for just like a quick second?
Sure. Yeah. Because so Marandi, what he is trying to say here, right, and what he did say much more eloquently than I ever could dream of, is that every single person in Iran has made the conscious decision that they're willing to fight for liberation, and that they're prepared for whatever will come, but that they don't want to, man. And it's what me and Isaac and others on this network have been saying for a while now, which is that they prove time and time again that the only civilized people are the people that are called barbarians by the so-called civilized West, right? And that humanity and living in reciprocity, those are human traits that exist throughout the global South and throughout West Asia. And it's only the colonialist entities and the imperialist entities, which are the same thing, that keep this world in the tailspin that it's in. And until there is a collective push to root out colonialism and imperialism, which is why the colonial question is so important to revolutionary movements here on Turtle Island, right? Is because that's how we win this thing. That's how we get our humanity back as a collective, is through our ability to regain our humanity and regain our ability to live reciprocally with the land and with other creatures and with other races and with other religions and with other, like, all of those things. And that is where, okay, cool. Whew.
You're running out of fumes. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I want to say shout out to Kennedy. I don't know if you're still in the chat. Thank you for the $5 Patreon subscription. For those that don't know, this is a donation-based network. We work, solely on donations. And this is how I survive, as I'm a broadcast journalist. I do geopolitical analyzing situations.
If you like our stuff, go to our Patreon.
Exactly.
Even just $1 a month, man. Like, if you like what we do, help us keep the fucking lights on.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't want to subscribe to the Patreon, that's scrolling below, and it also is in my subheader as well, right there below at Indigenous Nightmare Podcast, at Patreon. Then you can do a one-time, one-off spin donation. It's donation based, but I really do appreciate it. It keeps the conversations like Laith Marouf going. He was on in the first hour. We're in our third hour now, going into our third hour. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the content. I know you guys have. 132 people have stayed here since Laith has left, and we had almost 200.
Do you want to get into that Hamas article?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, for those that don't think we go over international shit, or that we're not on our Hamas urges Trump to learn from Biden's mistake, end blind support for Israel. We're gonna read this. I haven't read it yet.
Close up on it a little bit. Zoom it in. There you go.
Okay. So it says right here, Palestinian resistance movement, Hamas, says Donald Trump's new U.S. administration has to learn from Biden's mistakes and work seriously to stop Israeli genocide of the people of Palestine. Now, I know for those, I don't see that happening. I see him working in direct reciprocity to keep that mass escalation going, as it suits the needs of Western imperialism. Says when the left.
Well, I don't think they do either, but they have to. They have to put this statement out there, right?
Yeah, well, they have. It's. I'm not. I don't necessarily know if they have to put this statement out there. I just think it's a warning, like,
right.
In of it itself.
Like, you have a chance to be better than the person before you, and if that's something you're serious about, here's the ways.
And he's not opting to end all wars again. We have to understand again that corporations run the electoral process, and so by means of them spending billions of dollars to get the person that they want in play, that also means the military industrial complex and the arms industry, which he works heavily with. I'm just pointing out the obvious here. I don't necessarily think what Hamas said was wrong at all. I wouldn't go against their word, but I would also state, or just highlight that's not how these oligarchs work. They're fully invested in the destabilization of West Asia at this point. It's like spending billions of dollars to destabilize regions, and you think that you're just gonna, we're done. Nope. That project, was unsuccessful. That's not how imperialism works, you guys. Imperialism works by mass escalation and its continuous propelling of that, and the perpetuation of that. He can say in his victory speech, that he'll do the.
Well, he says all kinds of shit. So
exactly. He said that China he called COVID the Kung Flu virus. Like he
says shit. You can't go off of anything that he says. You have to go off of his actions. And the fact of the matter is that he's made it perfectly clear that BB, as he calls him, is his bestie. He's called him that on repeated occasions. Like, we're best friends. Like,
Yeah,
I talk to BB all the time.
I don't believe this. Work seriously to stop the war of genocide and aggression against our Palestinian people in Gaza Strip and West Bank. He says things like how you said, just to get a crowd going. He obviously had, it's practical behavior towards our Palestinian people, their legitimate rights and their just causes, but he believes in a secular system. Again, a same system that has been funneling billions of dollars to bomb and exterminate Palestinians. It's not, I just don't really see anything. It says right
Well,
here,
I think that Hamas is putting this statement out just to get him to hear his own words, kind of, right? And just to like make it known and let it be known that the Palestinian resistance isn't going to stop unless you work to stop it, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to have to work to stop it by giving them liberation. And so, like, he needs to. I read this as them putting him on blast. Like, live up to your fucking word, or none of this matters.
It's not going to matter, and that's like the fucked up part about people really believing that he has the best.
I don't think anybody believes he does.
Yeah, I don't see anything happening in regards to de-escalation when it comes to this, to this. It's not. And I think, for the most part, again, we've talked about it. People need to start ramping up, and a big part of that is tuning in here. We're going to be doing live streams. Tomorrow we'll be live, Friday we'll be live, Saturday we'll be live, Sunday we won't. We'll be back Monday. I deeply want people to start engaging. We put in the chat as well if someone wants to come up and speak. I know Ikemba dropped down. I don't know if Ikemba's still here. Ikemba, you still with us?
He put in the private chat. He's meeting with a student.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, in regards to that, all I can really say is that the Palestinian resistance movement will continue.
Yes.
Even aside of them thinking or leveraging some type of, and I think what it is, it's an outcry to those individuals that voted for Trump thinking that he was going to stop what's going on. I think it's an outcry to them, and I don't necessarily think it's a direct Trump, you better, because I don't think that they give a shit. Like, I think that they're prepared for if he's fully invested, which I believe he is in war and destruction and famine, then he's going to do everything that he can to uphold that. So let's see here. There's the pseudo left. Yeah. We have a lot of comments today, man. Like, this was wild. I don't necessarily. You got something you want to talk about? I feel like we're.
Look, dude. The message that we've been trying to get across, and the message that we will continue to try to get across, is one of solidarity, right?
Yeah.
But solidarity only works downward. It doesn't work. Like, you can't ask people in worse positions than you to be in solidarity with you about your issue if you're not willing to be in solidarity with them about their issue. And that's what land back is, right? And that's what the colonial question is. And that's why it's so important that we wrestle with that and what it looks like on Turtle Island, because it looks completely different than it does other places. But the fact of the matter is that, like Isaac has said, very well, is that there are 1,500 indigenous nations right here on Turtle Island that are, what's that? What's the word I'm looking for? They're already nations, right? They're already together, and so
I'm pulling up a live stream that happened on Black Power Media this morning in regards to Deruba Ben Wahad speaking on this. So I want to, pull up that video. Plus, shouting out the network that I work for. Let's see here.
So yeah. Anyway, while
Sorry,
he's
y'all.
doing,
I'm trying to find
no,
the
while
dirt.
he's doing that, I will, try my best to tread water. And you know what that looks like for me, because right now I'm neck deep in Western Marxism. So the idea of the colonial question is front and center in my mind.
What's happening, good people?
Oh, all right.
We are live and direct. This is RSTV. Excuse me. It's the Rise Up Morning Show. That's what we on today. Can y'all hear me? Thumbs up in the chat if you can hear me. 1 2 1 2. Hopefully y'all can hear me nice and clear. This is the Rise Up Morning Show. We are live and direct. We have a whole lot coming on. We got a few guests. We know you all excited. I'm gonna start off. I got a special guest co-host. I ain't gonna waste no time. I'm gonna get right to it and bring him on board. He is no stranger to the platform. So you wanted to start this?
Good morning, black man. Peace.
Peace. How you doing?
I just woke up. So
For those that don't know, that is Deruba Ben Wahad, former political prisoner, is an activist, is an elder, and a former Black Liberation Army member, for former Black Panther. Again, someone who knows very well how this system operates and how we as individuals from the African diaspora, i.e. me, and how settlers that work in solidarity with individuals that are indigenous and marginalized by this imperialist system, like Ryan, help us out, and so I just had to classify that because we did have a private conversation. Like he said a couple times I was a brother, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't even realize it. So let's get back to this.
I didn't see anything yet. So I guess they selected who they wanted. This electoral college system that everyone claims is democracy finally spoke. Do you know what the final disposition is? What the tally was?
Well,
who won the popular vote?
Well, according to the joints, we're gonna pull this thing up real quick. But while we do, of course, there's no surprises or whatever. Trump won the popular vote. It was a little over 71 million. He got the 277, of course, for the electoral college. Kamala got a little over 66 million, which was, they said, 47.5%. according to the polls, and she got 224 on the electoral college piece. We've been talking about this for like a century. You got this cat who was impeached twice, a convicted felon. You know what I mean? So many different.
They're asking what you said in the comments while the audio was playing.
That's a great question. I don't really even know, man.
That's
Sorry.
the wrong question to ask. That's the wrong question to ask two people who are neurodivergent and
yeah, I was on autopilot, man. I probably didn't even think I was on.
Well, straight up, I forgot this, but we were for like a second that we were recording because I thought I was just sitting here on my desk watching Deruba, but yeah, we gotta dial it back. Let's get back to this. I'm gonna play probably about 4 more minutes of this.
Deruba is really an important figure, right? And someone that we should really take heed to listen to. If you claim revolutionary rhetoric as your own, and you claim that you want to be revolutionary in your thinking, then he's really someone that we should be looking to right now in this moment, right? Like he has the correct line.
But that's not what I said.
I have no idea what I said. Sorry.
All right, let's get back to this.
Directions we can go in. We not tripping. We already know. We know the play. Still again, he's back in office, back like he never left.
Like herpes, he's back. Y'all want to fuck around and find out now.
Hey, what talk about this here, man? We know no holds barred today. Hopefully, we won't get banned. The fact that Deruba getting it started already. Best part of waking up is Deruba in your cup.
The best part of waking up.
Listen, man, I got.
That was a bar right there. The
Right.
best part of waking up is Deruba in your cup. All right, let's get serious. Let's get serious.
To laugh to keep from crying, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
This is pathetic, man. But you got to understand something, and I think whatever side we on, those who thought that voting for Kamala Harris would, at least keep their pensions coming and their Social Security coming, and and things that so they figured they could hold their nose and they could vote for her because she wouldn't cut Social Security. She wouldn't do those things that the Orange Man said he was going. He promised to do. I know they're feeling some way this morning. I would, I express my condolences to them, but let's be real. America gets the leadership it deserves. This white supremacist construct gets the leadership that it's qualified for. People think that being American is a nationality, is denotes nationality. It doesn't. It denotes the delusional state of mind. It's a condition. It's not nationality. It's a condition. And America has been the bane of humanity ever since it ascended to world hegemonic power. It's been the major driving force behind global division, racism, imperialism, white supremacy, and you name it. It's in America has been behind it. It's been the driving force sustaining it.
So real quick.
So they get the leadership we deserve, and sadly, this is the beginning of the end for this empire. And I think that we should buckle up, get whatever credentials we need, arm ourselves or harm ourselves. We need to be prepared to fight for our survival, to organize for our survival, and to send a message to these crackers and to these white supremacists that voted this dog into office that we will not be bullied, we will not be cowed, and we will not be beaten down and murdered without consequences.
I can't hear you, man.
I said everybody heard that, right? Everybody's I'm pretty sure everybody's antennas was up when he was talking, i.e. you were listening. What have we been talking about today, Ryan?
Exactly that.
So we have Deruba bin Wahad saying this. We have Laith Marouf saying this. We have Saeed Marandi saying this. We have every single intellectual individual basically stating we need to start organizing, and we ain't talking about the 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. protests that you guys fucking did for the past 4 years.
Put your pussy hats away.
Put that shit in the closet.
Yeah.
Lock that shit the fuck up and lace up your bootstraps, because we're gearing for fascism's all out. Again, this is like I can't even try and put a spin on this because it's serious. It's serious. Yes. This will involve children's. This will involve, again, the manipulation of children. This involves the education system. This involves how you are treated at work. Okay, read up on Project 2025, all 800 fucking pages of it. I believe it is, because I've read up on it. I know what's in there. I know what the major implications are at bay.
I'm old enough to remember when it was just the Bill of Rights.
Again, we and the individuals need to start arming ourselves intellectually. Okay, so that means reading up.
Yep.
We arm ourselves physically. Okay.
Yep.
I just got off the phone with pen and the paper right now, who's in Arkansas or Arkansas. I'm just saying. It's in Arkansas. That's helping out in a rural area that's predominantly racist, and has a small group of people from my diaspora, from mine and Penn's diaspora, that needed help during this time period for who were being targeted during the voting at polling booths and stuff. So she went out there for security to go and help out, certain communities that felt they were going to be targeted by some fascists. And so, we have to understand what the work that Penn does is the same work we need everybody else to do in our own capacity. We know everybody doesn't have, the resources that some might. I don't have the resources that Ryan has. Ryan doesn't have my resources. I don't have resources. So really, Ryan,
definitely ain't got those.
We live holistic lives in different parts of this occupied territory.
Well, I was talking to the boy about it today, right? Because everything on the table. You called me on my way to take my kid to school this morning, so he got to listen to a little bit of a conversation.
Sorry, little man. Sorry, little man.
You got to listen to a little bit of conversation between the two of us, and that's what when I spoke to my son about this. This is exactly what I was telling him. Is like, look, man, it's not going to look the same for everybody. Some people are going to be organizers. Some people are going to be communicators. Some people are going to be foot soldiers. Some people are going to be, aid. Some people are going to be healthcare. There's some people are going to be propaganda, right? Like anything that you can do to push forward the line, the colonialist line, the anti-colonialist line, anything you can do to push that forward is doing work. Right? So anything that you can do to push that forward is doing work. Even if it's just loaning someone a book is all you can do that day, or retweet somebody's Kwame Ture quote, right? Or pass around this video of Daruba, right? Yeah. All of those things count. And I'm sick of people acting like they don't, because they do.
Yeah, no, and you make a valid point. I'm glad that that you talk to your child about the mass destabilization that is here, and how it works in reciprocity to keep imperialism afloat, and how he has to live and eventually come to an age where he's gonna, if shit doesn't fucking get changed in the next fucking 10 years, he's gonna have to grow be an adult in a world that's uber fucking fascist, and that aligns its values with the pockets of the greedy corporate elites. And so it's vital for us to have conversations with whether it's for me, in my case, my little cousins, with my parents, whoever is willing to hear, is willing to listen and learn. That even means you guys here as well. If you're tuning in, the first hour is with Laith Marouf. So if you are tuning in to watch that, I highly advise you guys to go all the way back to the first hour.
It's not false advertisement, man. He was here. We promise.
He was here. We just do 3-hour live streams on regular, just for, not for the fuck of it, but
for exactly this thing that we're talking about.
Exactly.
For
to
education,
spread awareness,
for revolutionary consciousness to spread, right? We think that we can help people. And we think that we can help you organize, even if you guys organize in the chats, right? That there's room there to do it. There's
to network. Yeah.
All of it counts, man. And every single thing, like Creative Experiments right here is talking about, talking about his coworkers asking why they can't get a raise, and him talking to him about capitalism. Raising class consciousness matters. So it matters.
Yeah, it
and
definitely.
Don't let people tell you that it doesn't, because it fucking does.
Yeah, and again, the emphasis of this show, especially towards the end, is we got to get organized, but on a level that's serious now. What we've seen has been all out performative, and the performative nature of that, has gotten minor quantitative actions, but they haven't been they haven't made qualitative change, and that's what we should strive for if we're looking at that from a fundamental aspect. If we're looking at through the lens of Ingalls, I'm just being, I'll just keep it a buck. That's the fundamentals of dialectics, and we're barely at, understanding certain aspects of dialectics at this point. But with that being said, though, I think it probably is a good time for us to close out. We've been going for 3 hours. It doesn't really suit us to go any longer. There's really nothing for us to talk about. If there is, we will be back, you guys. I don't think the 104 people and the 181 that we're watching will probably be here, but if you do, please like, share, subscribe.
Man, really honestly,
I love coming on air. I love talking to people like Laith Marouf, Cornel West, Prince Shakur, the stuff I do, the work I do on BPM. I enjoy it. Reloaded, and that comes at an expense, which is why aid is needed. So if anybody would like to help out, they're below in the banner. There's the Venmo, there's the Cash App, there's the PayPal, and there's also my Patreon. Thank you to Kennedy that subscribed. Thank you to the $5 from this comrade right here. Thank you to the memberships that were given on YouTube. I just have to emphasize that I don't see any of the money on YouTube at all. That's because I don't generate enough. So YouTube basically takes it all. So you're basically paying YouTube. You're not paying me. So I highly advise those that, did, or in the future, as much as it's always, welcomed donations. I would just ask that you do it through the means of which that I have
here.
Actually
get to you.
Yeah. So they can actually come directly to me. Rather than through the constraints that YouTube has. They have you go through some super weird ass shit. You got to download an app, then you got to verify this, and you got to verify that, and you got to verify this, and it's just a bunch of bullshit. And then you get to the end of the road with them, and it's like, oh, well, you don't make $100 monthly, so everything in revenue that you make basically is ours, and that's ass.
Good time.
So
thanks, fucking capitalism.
Exactly, so right. I appreciate everybody that did become a member. It help, it doesn't help me directly at all, but
it does help our numbers as far as getting views and getting into the algorithm and all that stuff. So it is appreciated. It's all appreciated, and I guess like we said, we right here.
Yeah,
if you want to help,
it really does help out. I'll just put this out there. Risk of being, for eviction. I'm just gonna keep it real. And so you can help out. That would be generous. With that being said, though, thank you guys for tuning in. It has been a blast. And we will see you guys in the next one. Ryan, stick around though for 4 minutes after the recording. All right,
mask up, fam.
Mask up, you guys.
I'm the cult of personality. The cult of personality.
Add it to the blacklist. I never want to hear that music again.
Once prosperous nation.
I'm the cult of personality. The cult of personality.
Add it to the blacklist. I never want to hear that music again.